What would you sacrifice for the person you love? Your dignity, your body, your freedom? Tonight, I'm bringing you a story that will leave you breathless, where a Jamaican woman makes a deal with a Korean Mafia king to save her fiancé's life, spending one forbidden night in his world. But when dawn breaks, she discovers the price was never meant to be paid just once. He doesn't want her freedom. He wants her soul. This is a story of sacrifice, obsession, and the dangerous line between protection and possession. If you love intense emotional dramas with plot twists that'll keep you up at night, you're in the right place. So buckle up, because this journey starts in the rain, and it ends in fire. Before we begin, if you love intense romantic dramas with powerful storylines, now hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you team stay loyal to the fiancé or team fall for the mafia boss? Let me know below. Now let's meet Tia. Sometimes love asks us to become people we never thought we'd be. It asks us to step into darkness, to make choices that stain our souls. But the real question isn't what we'll sacrifice for love. It's whether we'll still recognize ourselves when the sacrifice is done. The rain over Kingston didn't fall softly that night. It collapsed from the sky like judgment itself, slamming against zinc roofs with the fury of ancestors who'd seen too much suffering. The streets of Waterhouse turned into rivers of red mud, swallowing the sounds of sirens, reggae bass, and the distant arguments of neighbors who couldn't afford to care about anything but survival. Tia Robinson stood barefoot in the doorway of her mother's small concrete house, watching the water creep toward her toes. Her phone was clutched so tightly in her hand that her knuckles had gone pale against her brown skin. On the screen was a video she'd watched 17 times. 17. Each time, her heart broke in a new place. Davis Thompson, her fiancé, her childhood love, the boy who used to walk her home from school with his hand wrapped protectively around hers, was tied to a metal chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. His white shirt was torn. Blood streaked from his temple down his jaw. His chest rose and fell in shallow, desperate gasps, but it was his eyes that destroyed her. They weren't searching the camera for rescue. They were searching for her, apologizing, begging, already mourning what he knew she'd have to do. Her thumb hovered over the play button, but she couldn't watch it again, not without shattering completely. Instead, she stared at the text message beneath the video. Unknown number. Your fiancé's debt is now your problem. Fly to Seoul, one night. No questions. No police. Or he dies at dawn. Below that, a single name glowed like a curse. Young Woo-jin. Tia's breath caught. She'd heard that name before. Whispered in the back rooms of bars, muttered by men who moved cargo through Kingston's ports without paperwork, spoken with the kind of fear reserved for hurricanes and ghosts. Young Woo-jin, a Korean shadow king who controlled shipping routes, black markets, and debts that spanned continents. And men who crossed him disappeared. Women who caught his attention, some said they were never seen again. Others said they were seen everywhere, wrapped in silk, dripping in diamonds, caged in golden towers. Tia closed her eyes. She thought of Davis's laugh, bright and easy, the way he used to chase her through the mango fields when they were children. She thought of the day he proposed to her on the beach at Hellshire, getting down on one knee in the sand with a ring he'd saved for 6 months to buy. She thought of his mother, Miss Yvette, who'd raised them both after Tia's parents died, who called Tia daughter and made her Sunday dinner every week without fail. And she thought of the man whose name now pulsed on her screen like a second heartbeat. Young Woo-jin. A stranger. A monster. The only person who could save Davis's life. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A car will pick you up in 30 minutes. Pack light. Bring nothing that can be traced. If you run, he dies screaming. Tia's hands began to shake. She looked back into the small house where her mother's photograph hung on the wall. A woman who'd taught her to be strong, to be dignified, to never let any man make her feel small. "Forgive me, Mama," Tia whispered into the rain. She turned back to her room, pulled a small black duffel bag from under her bed, and began to pack. As Tia folded a single white dress, the only elegant thing she owned, her mind drifted back. 12 years earlier. She was 9 years old, standing outside the corner shop in Waterhouse with a tray of her mother's coconut drops balanced on her head. Davis, 10 years old and already too brave for his own good, it was throwing stones at a stray dog that had been terrorizing the neighborhood kids. "You ain't afraid of nuttin', Davis?" Tia had called out, half admiring, half annoyed. Davis had grinned at her, gap-toothed and wild. "'Fraid? Me? Never." "Den you fool," Tia shot back, but she was smiling. From that day on, they were inseparable. Davis walked her to school. Davis scared off the boys who teased her. Davis held her hand when they buried her mother 3 years later, and he stood beside her at the grave when they buried her father a year after that. "Me nah go lef ya, Tia," he'd promised her that day, rain pouring over both of them like a baptism. "Not ever." She'd believed him. She still did. That's why she was packing this bag. That's why she was about to get into a car that would take her to a plane that would take her to a man whose name alone made grown men flinch. Exactly 30 minutes later, headlights cut through the rain. A black SUV with tinted windows pulled up to the curb, silent as a hearse. Tia grabbed her bag, locked the door behind her, and stepped into the storm. The driver didn't speak, didn't look at her, just opened the door. She climbed inside. The interior smelled like leather and something else, something cold and expensive that reminded her she was stepping into a world she didn't belong to. As the car pulled away from her mother's house, Tia watched Waterhouse disappear through the rain-streaked window. The zinc roofs, the mango trees, the corner where she used to sell coconut drops, the church where she'd planned to marry Davis in 6 months. All of it, slipping away. She pressed her forehead against the glass and whispered a prayer her mother used to say, "Lord, give me strength to do what I must, and forgive me for what I'm about to become." Norman Manley International Airport was nearly empty at 2 a.m. Tia moved through security like a ghost, clutching a first-class ticket she hadn't paid for and a passport that had been expedited by people who didn't ask questions. The flight attendant smiled too brightly. "Welcome aboard, Miss Robinson. May I get you anything?" Tia shook her head. She found her seat, 1A window, and buckled herself in. As the plane began to taxi down the runway, Tia stared out at the lights of Kingston growing smaller and smaller below her. "There's no coming back from this," Chanda voice whispered in her mind. The wheels left the ground. And for the first time in her life, Tia Robinson felt like she was falling even as she flew. She didn't sleep on the flight. Instead, she thought about Davis, about the debt he'd never told her about the brother he'd lost 5 years ago. Kellen Thompson, who'd gotten mixed up in things darker than anyone in Waterhouse wanted to admit. Weapons, shipping routes, names whispered in the dark. Kellen had died in a house fire the police called accidental. But Tia had always wondered. And now, 30,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, flying toward a man who ruled empires from the shadows, she was about to find out the truth. Some debts, she realized, don't die with the people who made them. They just pass to the ones who loved them most. 14 hours later, the plane descended into Incheon International Airport. Tia stepped off the jet bridge into a country that felt like another planet. Everything was glass and steel and clean, sharp lines. The signs were in a language she couldn't read. The people moved with quiet efficiency, like parts of a well-oiled machine. She felt desperately, terrifyingly out of place. At baggage claim, a woman was waiting for her. Tall, elegant Korean, wearing a black suit sharper than any knife. "Miss Robinson," the woman said in perfect English. "I am Solmara Ann. I work for Mr. Jung. Please come with me." Tia followed her outside to another black SUV. As they drove through Seoul's glittering streets, skyscrapers that seemed to pierce the clouds, neon signs in every direction. Solmara spoke without looking at her. "You will be taken to Jonghwa Tower, Mr. An Jung is waiting. You will sign a contract. You will honor it completely. Do you understand?" Tia's throat was dry. "And if I don't?" Solmara's eyes flicked to her in the rearview mirror. "Then the video of your fiancé's death will be sent to you within the hour." Tia's stomach turned to ice. "I understand," she whispered. "Good." Solmara's voice softened, almost imperceptibly. "For what it's worth, Miss Robinson, he does not hurt women. He does not force. He does not break those who come to him willingly." Tia looked out the window at the city rushing past. "Then what does he do?" Solmara was quiet for a long moment. "He keeps them." Zhonghua Tower rose above Seoul like a blade of black glass. 70 floors, a monument to wealth, power, and control. As the car pulled up to the entrance, Tia felt her pulse hammering in her throat. This is it, she thought, the point of no return. The doors opened, and Tia Robinson, daughter of Waterhouse, survivor of loss, keeper of promises, stepped out of the car and into the shadows. She didn't know then that she was walking into a trap far older and deeper than Davis's debt. She didn't know that the man waiting for her on the 71st floor had been looking for someone like her for years. She didn't know that sacrifice and obsession are two sides of the same coin, but she was about to learn. Chapter 1. The elevator to the 71st floor moved in perfect silence. No hum, no vibration, just the faint sensation of rising, like being pulled toward heaven or hell and not knowing which until the doors opened. Tia stood perfectly still, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored walls. She barely recognized herself. The white dress Solmara had given her in the car fit like it had been made for her body specifically. Simple, elegant, the kind of thing that whispered expensive without shouting. Her natural hair was pulled back into a low bun, revealing the slim column of her neck. Vulnerable, exposed. She looked like a woman going to her own execution dressed as a bride. Maybe that's what this is, she thought darkly. Solmara stood beside her, eyes forward, posture military straight. "When the doors open," Solmara said quietly, "walk straight ahead. He will be waiting in the lounge. Do not look around. Do not hesitate. Confidence is armor here, Miss Robinson. Even if you're terrified, especially if you're terrified, do not let him see you shake." Tia swallowed. "And if I do shake?" Solmara's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Well, then he'll know exactly how much power he has over you. And men like Young Woo-jin, they collect power the way other men collect art." Before Tia could respond, the elevator chimed softly, the doors slid open, and she stepped into another world. The 70th floor was not an office. It was a kingdom. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, offering a 360-degree view of Seoul sprawling below like a universe of lights. The city looked small from up here, manageable, conquerable. The floors were polished black marble that reflected the chandeliers hanging overhead, geometric sculptures of crystal and steel that looked like frozen starlight. Everything smelled of sandalwood, expensive leather, and something else Tia couldn't name. Something that felt like control. There were no cubicles, no desks, no clutter. Just open space. Saw modern furniture arranged with surgical precision and the overwhelming sense that every single thing in this room, from the temperature to the lighting to the angle of the leather couches, had been designed to make visitors feel exactly what Young Woo-jin wanted them to feel. Small, outmatched, owned. Tia forced herself to breathe evenly. "Don't shake. Don't let him see you shake." Solmara gestured toward a sunken lounge area near the western windows. "He's waiting." Then she turned and walked back toward the elevator, her heels clicking against the marble like a countdown. Tia was alone. She took one step forward, then another. And then she saw him. Young Woo-jin sat in a black leather chair positioned to face the windows, his back to her. Even from behind, he radiated authority. Oh, his suit was pure black, tailored so perfectly it looked like it had been painted onto his body. His hair was slicked back, revealing the sharp line of his jaw and the elegant column of his neck. His posture was relaxed but precise, like a blade resting in its sheath. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't acknowledge her, just sat there, looking out at his city. Tia stopped 10 feet away, her pulse hammering so loudly she was sure he could hear it. "Mr. Jung," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm here." Slowly, deliberately, he turned his head, and Tia's breath caught. Young Wu Jin was beautiful in the way ancient statues are beautiful. Cold, perfect, untouchable. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass. Eye lips pressed into a line that suggested he smiled rarely and only when he wanted something. His eyes were dark, fathomless, and impossibly focused. When he looked at her, it wasn't a glance. It was an assessment. He took her in slowly, her face, her posture, the way her hands were clasped in front of her to stop them from trembling. He studied her the way a jeweler studies a diamond, searching for flaws, calculating value. Tia lifted her chin and met his gaze. "Don't look away. Don't you dare look away." For 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours, they simply looked at each other. Then Young Woo Jin rose from his chair in one fluid motion. He was taller than she'd expected, broader. His presence filled the room like smoke, invisible but suffocating. Yet he walked toward her with the kind of measured grace that made it clear he'd never hurried for anyone in his life. He stopped 3 feet away and spoke for the first time. His voice was low, controlled, and devastatingly calm. "You flew halfway across the world for a man who already belongs to someone else's grave." Tia's stomach clenched, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "He belongs to me," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Something flickered in Woo Jin's eyes, not anger but interest. He tilted his head slightly, studying her like she'd just said something unexpected. "Does he?" Woo Jin asked softly. "Or do you simply refuse to let him go?" Tia felt her throat tighten. "What's the difference?" "One is love," Woo Jin replied, his eyes never leaving hers. "The other is fear." The words hit her like a slap. But before she could respond, he gestured toward the lounge area. "Sit." It wasn't a request. Tia walked over on unsteady legs and sat on the edge of the leather couch, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Woo Jin didn't sit. Instead, he moved to a sleek glass table nearby and picked up a single sheet of paper. A contract. He placed it on the table in front of her, along with a black pen that probably cost more than her mother's house. "Read it," he said simply. Tia picked up the paper with trembling fingers. The contract was short, clinical, terrifying. Agreement of terms. Party A, Young Woo Jin. Party B, Tia Robinson terms, Party B. Agrees to remain in the presence of Party A for a period of 12 hours, beginning at 2000 hours and concluding at 800 hours the following day. Checking, Party B agrees to comply with all requests made by Party A during this period, provided such requests do not result in permanent physical harm. Party B will not leave the designated premises before the agreed time. Party B will not contact any outside individuals during this period. Upon completion of this agreement, Party A will release Davis Thompson from all debts, obligations, and claims. Violation clause. If Party B violates any term of this agreement, Davis Thompson will be executed immediately. Signatures. Party A, Party B. Tia's hands shook as she read the words again. Comply with all requests. Will not leave. Executed immediately. She looked up at Woo Jin, who stood watching her with that same unreadable expression. "What exactly do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Woo Jin's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if there'd been any warmth behind it. "What I want," he said slowly, "is to understand why a woman would cross an ocean and offer herself to a stranger for a man who kept secrets from her." Tia's breath caught. "What secrets?" "The kind that get people killed," Woo Jin replied evenly. "But we'll discuss that later. First, sign." He gestured toward the pen. Tia stared at it like it was a snake. "And if I don't?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. Woojin pulled out his phone, tapped the screen once, and turned it toward her. A live video feed. Davis, still tied to that same metal chair in that same warehouse. But now there was a man standing behind him, a man holding a gun pressed against the back of Davis's skull. Tia's heart stopped. "Sign," Woojin said quietly, "and he walks free in 12 hours. Refuse, and you watch him die right now." Tia grabbed the pen. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely write, but she forced herself to scrawl her name across the bottom of the contract. Tia Robinson. The moment she set the pen down, Woojin picked up the contract, folded it precisely, and slipped it into the inner pocket of his suit jacket. Then he tapped his phone again. The man with the gun stepped back. Davis slumped forward, gasping. Alive. Tia closed her eyes and felt tears burn behind her lids. "I'm sorry, Davis. I'm so sorry." When she opened her eyes again, Woojin was watching her with an expression that might have been curiosity or pity. She couldn't tell. "You love him," Woojin observed. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Tia whispered. "Enough to destroy yourself for him." "Yes." Woojin was quiet for a moment, then he turned and walked toward the windows, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed. "That kind of love is dangerous," he said, his back to her. "It makes you weak." Tia's voice came out sharper than she intended. "And what would you know about love?" He didn't turn around. "Nothing," he admitted, "which is why I've never been destroyed by it." The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Woojin turned to face her again. 12 hours, Miss Robinson. Starting now." He checked his watch. 2000 hours. By 800 tomorrow morning, you'll be free to leave, and Davis Thompson will be released unharmed. He took a step closer. "But until then, you belong to me." The words hung in the air like smoke. Tia forced herself to stand, forced herself to meet his eyes. I'm not afraid of you," she lied. Woojin's lips curved into a real smile this time. Small, cold, and devastatingly knowing. "Yes, you are," he said softly, "but that's not what interests me." "Then what does?" He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "The fact that you came anyway." Woojin gestured toward the windows. "Walk with me." Tia hesitated, then followed him to the glass wall overlooking Seoul. The city stretched out endlessly below them. Millions of lights, millions of lives, all of them so far away they looked like stars. "Do you know why I brought you here?" Woojin asked, his voice quiet. "To remind me how small I am," Tia replied. He glanced at her, something like surprise crossing his features. "No," he said, "to show you what power looks like." "I don't care about power. Everyone cares about power, Miss Robinson. They just call it different things. Safety, freedom, control over their own lives." He turned to face her fully. "You came here tonight because Davis Thompson doesn't have power, and you were desperate enough to borrow mine." Tia's jaw tightened. "I came here because I love him." "Love," Woojin repeated as if tasting the word. "Tell me, does he love you the same way?" "Of course he does." "Then why didn't he tell you about his brother's debt?" The question was a knife between her ribs. Tia opened her mouth, then closed it. Woojin continued, his voice maddeningly calm. "Kellen Thompson worked for a smuggling network that moved weapons through Kingston's ports to Busan. When he died, the debt transferred to Davis. Just that was 5 years ago. 5 years your fiancé has been lying to you." Tia felt the floor tilt beneath her. "You're lying." "I don't lie, Miss Robinson. Lying is for people who fear consequences." He pulled out his phone, swiped through several screens, and handed it to her. "See for yourself." On the screen was a document. Shipping manifests, financial transfers. Names she didn't recognize, except for one. Kellen Thompson. And beneath it, in smaller text, "Debt transferred to Davis Thompson. January 2020, 5 years ago, a year before Davis proposed to her. Tia's hands went numb. He knew, she whispered. The whole time, he knew. Yes. She looked up at Woojin, her eyes burning. And you? What's your part in all this? I'm the one cleaning up someone else's mess, Woojin replied. A smuggler named Aquilas Coro used my shipping routes without permission. When I found out, I eliminated him, but his network had already ensnared your fiancé. He paused. I could have killed Davis too, but I chose a different option. Me, Tia said bitterly. You. She wanted to scream, to rage, to break something. Instead, she asked the only question that mattered. Why? Woojin was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that sent chills down her spine. Because the moment I saw you step out of that car downstairs, barefoot, terrified but still standing, I knew you were different. Different how? He looked at her with an intensity that made her feel like she was burning. You're not broken yet. The words landed like stones. And you want to break me? Tia asked, her voice shaking. No, Woojin said softly. I want to see if you can be broken at all. Before Tia could respond, Woojin checked his watch again. It's late, he said. You must be exhausted from your flight. He pressed a button on a sleek panel near the windows. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a private elevator, different from the one she'd arrived in. This will take you to the penthouse suite, Woojin said. That's where you'll stay tonight. Tia's heart began to race. You're not coming? He raised an eyebrow. Did you want me to? No, she said quickly, too quickly. That cold smile returned. Liar. Tia felt heat flood her face. Woojin stepped aside, gesturing toward the elevator. Go, rest. We have 11 hours remaining, Miss Robinson. I'll come for you when it's time. Tia walked toward the elevator on unsteady legs. Just as she stepped inside, Woojin spoke one last time. Tia. It was the first time he'd used her first name. She turned. He was standing with his hands in his pockets, backlit by the city, looking like a king surveying his empire. You asked me what I want from you, he said quietly. The truth is, I'm still deciding. The elevator doors began to close. The last thing Tia saw was his eyes, dark, unreadable, and locked on hers. Then the doors shut, and she was alone, rising toward a night she didn't understand. Chapter 2. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse suite. No hallway, no buffer, just straight into a space so vast and beautiful it felt like stepping into a dream someone else was having. Tia took one step forward, and the motion sensor lights bloomed to life around her. The entire penthouse was wrapped in floor-to-ceiling windows, glass walls on every side offering an unobstructed view of Seoul at night. The city glittered below like scattered diamonds on black velvet. She could see everything. The Han River snaking through the city like a silver ribbon, the Seoul Tower glowing red in the distance, endless streams of headlights moving through streets far below. But she couldn't open the windows, couldn't step outside. It was beautiful, and it was a prison. The interior was minimalist and cold, all clean lines, black marble, white leather furniture, and steel accents. A massive bed dominated the center of the room, its white sheets looking untouched, almost sacred. To the left was a kitchen she'd never use. To the right, a bathroom carved entirely from black stone with a rainfall shower large enough for 3 people. Everything was designed for luxury. Nothing was designed for warmth. Tia walked slowly to the windows and pressed her palm against the glass. It was cool to the touch. Solid. Unbreakable. She looked down at the city 70 floors below and felt her stomach drop. I can't leave, she realized. Even if I wanted to, the elevator needs a code. The windows don't open. I'm trapped until he decides to release me. The weight of it pressed down on her chest like a stone. She turned away from the windows and caught sight of herself in a full-length mirror near the bathroom. The woman staring back was a stranger. Elegant white dress, hair pulled back, eyes wide with fear she couldn't quite hide. She looked like a sacrifice. No, Tia thought bitterly. I am a sacrifice. Her phone buzzed in the small clutch purse Solmara had given her. She pulled it out with shaking hands. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Davis is safe. For now. Don't disappoint Mr. Young. Below it was a photo. Davis, still in that warehouse, but the ropes were gone. He was sitting on the floor, head in his hands, alive but shattered. Tia closed her eyes and pressed the phone against her chest. I'm doing this for you, she thought. Hold on, just hold on. Another buzz, a different message. This one made her blood run cold. Young Woo-jin. There's a shower. Clean clothes in the closet. Take your time. I'll see you at midnight. Tia looked at the clock on the wall. 22:47. She had just over an hour. Tia stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection in the massive mirror above the marble sink. Who are you? She asked the woman in the glass. Who are you becoming? She'd never felt more disconnected from herself. Back in Kingston, she was Tia Robinson, daughter of Waterhouse, survivor, fighter. She sold jerk chicken at the market on weekends. She braided hair for the neighborhood girls. She sang in the church choir even though her voice wasn't perfect. She was real. But here, in this glass tower, in this borrowed dress, about to spend the night with a man whose name made grown men afraid, she didn't know who she was anymore. You're doing this for Davis, she reminded herself. You're doing this for love. But a small, traitorous voice in the back of her mind whispered, Are you? Or are you doing this because you're too afraid to admit Davis isn't worth this sacrifice? She shoved the thought away violently. Tia turned on the shower. Steam filled the bathroom as hot water cascaded from the ceiling like rain. She stepped beneath it and let the heat wash over her, scrubbing at her skin like she could wash away the shame, the fear, the growing sense that she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. When she finally stepped out, her skin was raw and her eyes were red. She wrapped herself in a towel and walked to the closet. Inside, she found exactly what Woo-jin had promised, clothing. But not just any clothing. Hanging in perfect alignment were options clearly chosen for her. A silk nightgown in deep emerald green, a simple black dress, elegant but understated, a white cotton robe, soft and modest, expensive lingerie still in packaging. Tia stared at the options, her heart pounding. What does he expect me to wear? What does he want me to wear? She reached past the nightgown and the lingerie and grabbed the white robe. If he wanted seduction, he'd be disappointed. If he wanted submission, he'd be wrong. She tied the robe tightly around her waist, pulled her damp hair over one shoulder, and walked back into the main room. The clock read 23:52, 8 minutes until midnight. Tia sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap, her heart hammering against her ribs. Don't shake, she told herself. Don't let him see you shake. At exactly midnight, she heard the private elevator activate. The soft chime echoed through the penthouse like a bell tolling. The doors slid open, and young Woo-jin stepped inside. He'd changed. Gone was the formal suit. Now he wore simple black trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms that were lean and strong. His hair was still perfectly styled, but something about him seemed slightly less controlled, almost human. He stood in the elevator threshold for a moment, just looking at her. Tia forced herself to meet his gaze. You chose the robe, he observed, his voice neutral. Yes. Not the nightgown. No. A pause. Then, why? Tia lifted her chin. Because I'm not here to seduce you. I'm here because you're holding a gun to someone I love. Something flickered across Woo-jin's face. Not anger, but something deeper. Respect, maybe. Or curiosity. He stepped fully into the room. The elevator doors closed behind him with a soft hiss. Suddenly, the penthouse felt much smaller. Woo-jin walked past her without touching her, moving to the windows. He stood with his back to her, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city the same way he had earlier. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then quietly, almost to himself, he said, "I don't want you to seduce me." Tia blinked. "Then what do you want?" He turned slowly to face her. "I want to understand you." She let out a bitter laugh. "There's nothing to understand. I'm just a woman trying to save the man she loves." "No," Woo Jin said, walking toward her with measured steps. "You're a woman who's been lying to herself for years." Tia's stomach clenched. "Excuse me?" He stopped a few feet away, studying her with those dark, penetrating eyes. "Davis Thompson has been lying to you for 5 years about a debt that could have gotten you killed. He put you in danger. He kept secrets. He let you walk into this tower tonight thinking you were saving him, when in reality, he was the one who dragged you into this world in the first place." Tia stood, her hands balled into fists. "You don't know anything about us." "I know more than you think." Woo Jin's voice was calm, clinical. "I know he proposed to you a year after his brother died. I know he never told you about the debt. I know that when my people came for him, he gave them your name." Tia's breath caught. "What?" "He told them you had value," Woo Jin continued, his eyes never leaving hers. "He told them you were loyal, beautiful, that you'd do anything for him." He paused. "He offered you up before they even asked." The words hit her like a physical blow. "You're lying," she whispered, but her voice was shaking. Woo Jin pulled out his phone, swiped through it, and held it out to her. A recording. And she took the phone with trembling hands and pressed play. Davis's voice came through the speaker, frightened, desperate, broken. "Please, man, please. I can get you the money. I have someone. Her name is Tia. She loves me. She'd do anything for me. She's beautiful, man. She's worth something. Please, just don't kill me." Tia's legs gave out. She collapsed back onto the bed, the phone falling from her hands. It wasn't possible. Davis wouldn't. But the voice was his. The desperation was real. He'd given her up to save himself. Woo Jin picked up the phone and slipped it back into his pocket. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you," he said quietly. "I'm telling you because you deserve to know the truth about the man you're destroying yourself for." Tia couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Woo Jin sat down on the edge of the bed, not close, but close enough. "You flew across the world tonight believing you were making a noble sacrifice," he said, "but the man you're sacrificing yourself for already sacrificed you first." A tear slid down Tia's cheek. She wiped it away violently. "Then why?" she whispered. "Why bring me here if you already know he's not worth it?" Woo Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Because I wanted to see if you knew." They sat in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, Tia spoke, her voice raw. "You think I'm stupid?" "No," Woo Jin replied. "I think you're loyal. There's a difference. Loyalty to someone who doesn't deserve it is stupid." "Perhaps," he turned to look at her. "Or perhaps it's the most human thing about you." Tia looked at him, really looked at him. For the first time since he'd entered the penthouse. Up close, without the armor of distance and power dynamics, he looked tired. There were faint shadows under his eyes, a tension in his jaw that suggested he carried weight he never let anyone see. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. "About me, about any of this. You're a mafia boss. You could have just killed Davis and been done with it." Woo Jin leaned back slightly, considering the question. "I've killed many men," he said finally. "Most of them deserved it. Some didn't, but I've never killed someone for loving the wrong person." He paused. "That seems too cruel, even for me." "So you brought me here instead?" "Yes." "To punish me?" "No." His voice softened in a way she hadn't expected. "To give you a choice." Tia frowned. "What choice? You're holding Davis's life over my head." I don't have a choice." "You do," Woo Jin said. "You just haven't realized it yet." Before she could ask what he meant, he stood and walked to the windows again. "Tell me about yourself," he said, his back to her. "Not about Davis, not about why you're here. Tell me about Tia Robinson." The request caught her completely off guard. "Why?" "Because in 11 hours you'll walk out of this building and I'll never see you again," Wu Jin replied. "And I'd like to know who you were before tonight." Something about the way he said it, not demanding, not commanding, but almost asking, made Tia's defenses crack just slightly. She pulled the robe tighter around herself and spoke. "I grew up in Waterhouse," she began quietly. "It's a neighborhood in Kingston, not the nice part. The part where the zinc roofs leak when it rains and the electricity goes out every other week." Wu Jin didn't turn around, just listened. "My mother sold pastries on the street corner," Tia continued. "Coconut drops, gizadas, plantain tarts. I used to help her after school. We'd stand there for hours in the heat, and she'd sing while we worked." Tia's voice caught. She had the most beautiful voice. "Had?" Wu Jin asked gently. "She died when I was 12. Cancer." Tia swallowed hard. "My father died a year later. Heart attack. Or maybe just a broken heart." "And Davis?" Tia was quiet for a moment. "Davis was there," she said finally. "Through all of it. He walked me to school. He made me laugh when I wanted to cry. He promised me—" She trailed off. "Promised you what?" "That I'd never be alone again." Wu Jin finally turned to face her. "And you believed him?" "I did." "Do you still?" Tia looked down at her hands. "I don't know anymore." Wu Jin walked back toward her slowly, then did something unexpected. He sat on the floor in front of her, not on the bed, not beside her, but below her eye level, removing the power dynamic. Tia stared at him in shock. "What are you doing?" "Leveling the field," he replied simply. "You've been looking up at me all night. Now I'll look up at you." It was such a strange, thoughtful gesture that Tia didn't know how to respond. "Tell me something," Wu Jin said, his voice quieter than before. "If Davis walked into this room right now and told you the truth, that he gave you up to save himself, would you still love him?" Tia opened her mouth to say yes automatically, but the word wouldn't come. Instead, she heard herself say, "I don't know." Wu Jin nodded slowly, like she'd just confirmed something he'd suspected. "Honesty," he said. "That's the first honest thing you've said all night." Tia felt tears burning behind her eyes again. "Why does it matter to you?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why do you care if I love him or not?" Wu Jin looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something that made her heart stop. "Because the moment you stepped out of that elevator tonight, I realized something." "What?" His eyes held hers, dark, intense, unbearably honest. "That I would have crossed an ocean for you, too." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Tia couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't look away. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "I know enough," Wu Jin replied. "I know you're brave enough to sacrifice yourself for someone who doesn't deserve you. I know you're strong enough to sit in this room with me and not break. I know," he paused, "I know that in a life where I've collected power, money, control, you're the first thing I've ever wanted that I can't simply take." Tia's pulse was racing so fast she felt dizzy. "This is insane," she breathed. "Yes. You're holding Davis hostage. Yes. I should hate you. You should. So why don't I?" Wu Jin's expression softened, just barely, just enough to make him look almost vulnerable. "Because you see what I see," he said quietly, "that sometimes the person we're supposed to love and the person we're meant to find are not the same." Slowly, carefully, Wu Jin reached up and touched Tia's hand where it rested on her knee. Not grabbing, not claiming, just touching. His fingers were warm, steady. "I'm going to ask you something," he said, "and I need you to answer honestly." Tia nodded, unable to speak. If there were no contract, Woo Jin said, no debt, no Davis in a warehouse, if you and I were just two people who met by chance, would you want to be here? Tia's breath caught. The truth was a knife in her chest. I don't know, she whispered. Then let's find out. Before she could ask what he meant, Woo Jin stood, walked to the glass table near the window, and pulled the contract from his jacket pocket. He held it up so she could see it. Then, without hesitation, he tore it in half. Tia gasped. What are you doing? Removing the chains, Woo Jin said simply. He tore the contract again, and again, until it was nothing but confetti in his hands. He let the pieces fall to the floor. Davis will be released in the morning, he said. Debt cleared, no conditions. Tia stood, her legs shaking. I don't understand. Woo Jin walked toward her slowly. The contract was a lie, he said. I was going to release him regardless of what happened tonight. I don't hold innocent people hostage, Miss Robinson. I'm not a monster. Then why? Because I needed you to come here, he interrupted. I needed to meet you, to see if you were real. He stopped inches from her. And now that I have… What? Tia whispered. Now I'm giving you a choice, Woo Jin said. A real one. You can walk out of this building right now. I'll have Solmara take you to the airport. You'll be in Kingston by tomorrow night. Davis will be free, and you'll never see me again. Tia's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Or, she breathed. Woo Jin raised his hand slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. He touched her cheek. Gentle, reverent, devastating. Or you can stay, he said quietly. Not because of a contract, not because I'm forcing you, but because you want to. Tia closed her eyes. Every logical part of her brain was screaming at her to run. This man was dangerous, powerful. He lived in a world of blood and shadows, but when she opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him, she didn't see a monster. She saw a man who'd torn up a contract to give her freedom, a man who'd sat on the floor to meet her at eye level, a man who'd looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. If I stay, she whispered, what happens? I don't know, Woo Jin admitted. I've never done this before. Done what? Wanted someone to stay because they chose to. Tia felt something break open inside her chest, something that had been locked tight for years. She should leave. She should run back to Kingston, back to Davis, back to the life she knew. But instead, she heard herself say, Ask me. Woo Jin's eyes widened slightly. What? You said I could stay if I wanted to, Tia said, her voice trembling. So ask me. Give me that much. For the first time since she'd met him, young Woo Jin looked uncertain. He took a breath, and then, in a voice so quiet it was almost a prayer, he asked, Tia Robinson, will you stay with me tonight? She should say no. She should walk away. But when she opened her mouth, the word that came out was yes. What happened next was not what Tia expected. Woo Jin didn't kiss her, didn't pull her toward the bed, didn't touch her at all. Instead, he walked to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of wine, and handed one to her. I thought, Tia began, confused, that I wanted to sleep with you? Woo Jin finished. He took a sip of his wine. I do, but not tonight. Then what do you want? To talk to you, he said simply. To know you, to hear your voice when you're not afraid. And so they talked. They sat on the leather couches facing the windows, the city glittering below them like fallen stars, and they talked. Tia told him about her mother's coconut drops, about the mango trees in Waterhouse, about the church choir and the Sunday dinners with Miss Yvette. Woo Jin told her almost nothing about himself, but the little he did share felt like gold. He'd grown up in Busan. His father had been a dock worker who died in an accident when Woo Jin was 15. He'd built his empire from nothing, one shipping route at a time until he controlled half the ports in East Asia. And the other half? Tia asked. I'm working on it, he replied with that ghost of a smile. Hours passed. The wine disappeared. The conversation flowed like water, sometimes deep, sometimes shallow, but always moving. And somewhere around 3 a.m., as Tia was telling him about the time she'd punched a boy in school for pulling her hair, she realized something terrifying. She was laughing, really laughing, with a man who'd held a gun to her fiancé's head. The realization sobered her instantly. "What's wrong?" Woojin asked, noticing the shift. Tia set down her empty wine glass. "This," she said quietly. "All of this. It's wrong." "Why?" "Because Davis is still in that warehouse. Because I'm supposed to love him. Because—" She looked at Woojin helplessly. "Because I shouldn't feel this comfortable with you." Woojin leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes serious. "Davis was released 2 hours ago," he said. Tia blinked. "What?" "I sent the order at 1 a.m., Woojin continued. "He's in a hotel in Busan right now. Safe, fed, unharmed." Tia stood abruptly. "You let him go?" "Yes. But the contract said—" "I told you, the contract was a lie." Woojin stood as well. You've been free for the last 2 hours, Tia. You could have left at any time." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to see what you'd choose," he said. "When there was no debt, no obligation, no gun to anyone's head. Would you stay?" Tia felt her knees go weak. "And I did," she whispered. "Yes," Woojin said. "You did." The weight of it crashed over her. She'd stayed. Not because she had to, but because some part of her, some deep, traitorous, honest part, wanted to. "I should leave," she said, but she didn't move. "You should," Woojin agreed. But he didn't step back. They stood there, inches apart, the city glowing behind them. And then, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Woojin raised his hand and cupped her face. His touch was gentle, reverent. "You don't belong to me," he said quietly. "But I think I might belong to you." And before Tia could stop herself, before she could think or reason or remember all the reasons this was wrong, she kissed him. When Tia woke, the sun was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She was in the massive bed, wrapped in white sheets that smelled like sandalwood and something distinctly masculine. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back. Oh, God. She sat up, her heart racing, and looked around. The penthouse was empty, no sign of Woojin. But on the nightstand beside her was a note written in elegant handwriting. "You were free to leave all night, but you stayed. Remember that." WJ. Beneath it was her phone, and a plane ticket back to Kingston, and a bank transfer notification for $1,500,000. Tia's hands shook as she read the amount again. $1,500,000, 10 times what the contract had promised. She grabbed her phone and pulled up her messages. 3 new texts. Solmara Ann, "A car is waiting downstairs whenever you're ready. Your flight leaves at noon." Davis Thompson, "Tia, I'm so sorry. I'm in Busan. They released me. I'm okay. Please call me." And one final message that made her breath catch. "Young Woojin, your fiancé is free. You are not." Y'all, did Tia just fall for the man who was supposed to be her nightmare? And what does Woojin mean by "you are not free"? Drop a comment right now. Are you Team Davis or Team Woojin? Because trust me, this love triangle is about to get messy. Don't forget to like and subscribe because Chapter 3 is where everything falls apart. Let's keep going. Chapter 3. The flight back to Kingston felt longer than the flight to Seoul. Tia sat in first class, a luxury she'd never experienced before and likely never would again, staring out the window at clouds that looked like cotton mountains. Her reflection in the glass was a stranger's face, haunted, confused, fundamentally changed. She kept replaying the last 72 hours in her mind like a film reel stuck on repeat. The rain, the video of Davis, the tower. Woojin's eyes, his voice, his touch. The way he'd torn up the contract. The way she'd stayed anyway. The way she'd kissed him. What have I done? Her phone was in airplane mode, but she could still see the screenshot she'd taken before boarding, the bank transfer notification glowing like an accusation. $1,500,000 US deposited to account ending in 4827. $1,500,000. More money than her mother had earned in her entire lifetime selling pastries on that street corner. More money than Tia had ever imagined having. Blood money. Or was it something else? She didn't know anymore. When the plane finally touched down at Norman Manley International Airport, Tia felt like she'd been gone for years instead of days. The humid Kingston air hit her face like a baptism as she stepped off the jet bridge. The sounds of patois, reggae bleeding from someone's phone, the smell of jerk chicken from a nearby vendor. It all felt surreal after the clinical perfection of Seoul. I'm home, she thought. But it didn't feel like home anymore. She'd crossed an ocean and left something essential behind. Her phone powered on as she walked through customs. Immediately, as it began buzzing with notifications like a swarm of angry bees. 15 missed calls from Davis, 23 text messages, 7 voicemails, and one message that made her blood run cold. Young Woo-jin, your fiancé is free. You are not. Tia stopped walking so abruptly that the woman behind her nearly collided with her. You are not. What did that mean? Her hands trembling, she opened her banking app to confirm the transfer was real. It was. But there was something else. A note attached to the transaction. Payment for services rendered. Contract fulfilled. However, additional terms apply. You will be contacted shortly. JUJ. Additional terms? Panic fluttered in her chest like a trapped bird. She tried to open her messaging app to text Woo-jin back, but the message thread was gone. Deleted. Like it had never existed. When she tried to call the number he'd texted from, a recorded voice informed her, "The number you have dialed is not in service." Tia stood in the middle of the airport arrivals hall, surrounded by families embracing and taxi drivers shouting destinations, feeling more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. Then her phone rang. Davis Thompson. She stared at his name on the screen, her thumb hovering over the answer button. He gave you up to save himself, Woo-jin's voice echoed in her memory. He offered you before they even asked. But Davis was also the boy who'd held her hand at her mother's funeral, the man who'd promised to never leave her, her fiancé. She answered. Tia. Davis's voice cracked with emotion. Oh God, Tia, are you okay? Where are you? I'm at the airport, she said quietly. I just landed. Stay there. I'm coming to get you right now. Don't move. Davis, I'm so sorry, Tia. I'm so fucking sorry. I should have told you everything. I should have... His voice broke completely. Please, just wait for me. Please. Tia closed her eyes. I'll wait, she whispered. She heard him exhale in relief. 20 minutes. I'm leaving now. The line went dead. Tia walked outside into the Kingston heat and sat on a concrete barrier near the taxi stand, her small black duffel bag at her feet. 20 minutes, she thought. 20 minutes until I see him again and have to pretend I didn't betray him in every way that matters. Except, had she? Woo-jin had released Davis before anything happened. She'd been free the entire time. She'd stayed because she wanted to. That makes it worse, a voice whispered in her mind. That makes it so much worse. At Davis's car, a battered Honda Civic with rust spots and a cracked windshield, pulled up exactly 19 minutes later. He practically fell out of the driver's seat, running toward her like a man possessed. Tia! Before she could react, he was pulling her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. His body was shaking, or maybe hers was. She couldn't tell anymore. I thought I'd lost you, Davis whispered into her hair. I thought, God, Tia, I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. Tia stood rigid in his embrace, her arms at her sides. Davis pulled back, noticing. Baby, what's wrong? She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since Seoul. Davis Thompson was still handsome in that rough, boyish way she'd always loved. Strong jaw, warm brown eyes. The small scar above his left eyebrow from when he'd fallen out of a mango tree at age 12. But now she saw something else. Guilt, shame, fear. "Tell me the truth," Tia said quietly. "About everything." Davis's face crumbled. "Not here. Please, let's go home. I'll tell you everything. I promise." "You promised me a lot of things, Davis." The words came out sharper than she intended. Davis flinched like she'd hit him. "I know," he whispered. "I know. Just, please get in the car." Against her better judgment, Tia picked up her bag and followed him to the Honda. They didn't go to Davis's apartment or to her mother's old house. Instead, Davis drove them to Hellshire Beach, the same beach where he'd proposed 2 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on Tia. They sat on the hood of the car, the Caribbean Sea stretching endlessly before them, at the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Davis broke the silence. "My brother Kellen got mixed up with some bad people 5 years ago," he began, his voice hollow. "He was moving weapons through the Kingston ports to Korea, Busan specifically. I didn't know about it until after he died." "The house fire," Tia said, "wasn't an accident." Davis's hands clenched into fists. "They killed him because he tried to skim product. And when he died," he swallowed hard, "the debt passed to me." "How much?" $2 million US. Tia's stomach dropped. "Jesus, Davis." "I tried to handle it on my own," Davis continued desperately. "I swear to God, Tia, I never wanted you involved. I took extra shifts. I sold everything I had, but it wasn't enough." "Oh, it was never enough." "So you gave them my name," Tia said flatly. Davis's head snapped toward her. "What? No, I would never—" "I heard the recording, Davis." Her voice was ice. "Young Woo Jin played it for me. You told them I was beautiful, that I'd do anything for you, that I was worth something." The color drained from Davis's face. "Tia, don't lie to me anymore." Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not after what I just did for you." Davis buried his face in his hands. "They were going to kill me," he whispered. "They had a gun to my head, and they asked if I had anything of value, and I panicked. I shouldn't have. I know I shouldn't have. But I was so scared, Tia. I'm such a fucking coward." "Yes," Tia said quietly. "You are." The words landed like stones. Davis looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Oh, what did they make you do?" Tia turned away, staring at the ocean. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." "Does it?" She laughed bitterly. "You sold me to save yourself, Davis. Whatever happened after that is on you." "Did they hurt you?" His voice was desperate, pleading. "Please, Tia, I need to know." She thought about Woo Jin's hand on her cheek, his voice asking her to stay, the way she'd kissed him like she was drowning and he was air. "No," she lied. "They didn't hurt me." Davis let out a shaky breath. "Thank God. Thank God." But Tia knew the truth. They hadn't hurt her body. They'd destroyed something far more important, her certainty about who she was and who she loved. "Who is Aquilus Coro?" Tia asked suddenly. Davis stiffened. "Where did you hear that name?" "Answer the question." "He was—" Davis hesitated. "Yeah, he was the man who ran the smuggling network, the one Kellen worked for. But he's dead now. Young Woo Jin killed him 6 months ago." Tia processed this. "So the debt should have died with him." "It should have," Davis agreed. "But Young took over his territory and his debts." So this was never about Aquilus at all, Tia realized. This was about Woo Jin collecting what he was owed. Yes. The pieces were falling into place, but they formed a picture Tia didn't understand. If Woo Jin had just wanted money, he could have killed Davis and seized whatever assets existed. If he'd wanted revenge, he could have made Davis suffer. Instead, he'd brought Tia to Seoul. Torn up her contract, let her choose. Why? "What happens now?" Davis asked quietly. Miss Tia looked at the engagement ring on her finger, a simple gold band with a tiny diamond that Davis had saved 6 months to buy. Slowly, she twisted it off. "Tia, no. I'm not breaking up with you," she interrupted, holding up a hand. "But I need time. I need to figure out who I am after all this." Davis's face crumpled with relief and grief in equal measure. Okay, whatever you need." She placed the ring in his palm and closed his fingers around it. "Keep it safe," she said. "If I come back for it, you'll know." "And if you don't?" Tia didn't answer. She slid off the hood of the car and walked toward the water, letting the tide wash over her bare feet. Behind her, she heard Davis break down crying. But she didn't turn around. That night, Tia lay in her childhood bedroom in her mother's old house, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silent. No calls, no texts, nothing from Woo Jin. Good, she told herself. It's over. Whatever that was, it's done. But even as she thought it, she knew it was a lie. At exactly 11:47 p.m., her phone lit up. One new notification. She grabbed it with shaking hands. An email from an address she didn't recognize, redacted at jongwacorp.kr, no subject line. No body text, just a single attachment, a video file. Against every instinct screaming at her not to, Tia pressed play. The video was shot from a high angle, security footage maybe. It showed the penthouse suite in Jonghwa Tower, the same suite where she'd spent that night with Woo Jin. But the footage was from earlier that morning, after she'd left. Woo Jin stood alone at the windows, his back to the camera, perfectly still. For 30 seconds, he didn't move. Then slowly, he pressed his forehead against the glass. Just for a moment. Just long enough for Tia to see that even a man made of steel could bend. The video ended. Tia's hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Beneath the video, a new message appeared. Young Woo Jin. I told you, your fiancé is free. You are not. And neither am I. Chapter 4. Life in Kingston returned to its normal rhythm with unsettling ease. Tia went back to work at Miss Yvette's restaurant, serving jerk chicken and festival to tourists and locals. She braided hair on weekends. She sang in the church choir on Sundays, her voice blending with the congregation's in-hymns she'd known since childhood. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Davis tried. God, he tried. He showed up at her door every other day with flowers from the market, with apologies written on paper he'd clearly labored over, with promises that things would be different. Tia accepted the flowers, read the letters, listened to the promises, but she didn't take back the ring. I just need more time, she kept saying. Davis always nodded, his eyes full of desperate hope. Whatever you need, baby. I'll wait forever if I have to. But they both knew forever had an expiration date. The money from Woo Jin sat untouched in Tia's bank account like a sleeping dragon. She hadn't spent a single dollar, hadn't told anyone about it except Miss Yvette, who'd nearly fainted when Tia showed her the balance. "La Jesus," Miss Yvette had whispered, clutching her chest. "Tia, darling." "Oh, where does money come from?" "From a deal I made," Tia had answered honestly, "to save Davis." Miss Yvette had looked at her for a long, searching moment. "And what did this deal cost you, child?" Tia had looked away. "I don't know yet." Now, 3 weeks after returning from Seoul, Tia was beginning to think maybe she'd gotten away clean. Maybe Woo Jin had simply let her go. Maybe "you are not free" was just words. Maybe... The sound of jet engines overhead shattered her delusion. Tia was at the market buying Scotch bonnet peppers when she heard it. Low, rumbling, growing louder. She looked up just in time to see a sleek private jet descending toward Norman Manley International Airport. Black and silver, elegant and predatory. Something in her chest tightened. No, it can't be. Around her, people were stopping to stare, as shielding their eyes against the sun. "What at?" someone muttered. "Somebody important must be coming." Tia's phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out with trembling hands. Solmara Ann. Mr. Young has arrived in Kingston. He requests your presence at the Knutsford Court Hotel. A car will collect you in 1 hour. Tia's blood turned to ice. She typed back with shaking fingers. Tia, tell him I'm not coming. The response was instant. Solmara Ann. He anticipated you would say that. He also says to remind you, this is not a request. Tia made it 45 minutes before her resolve cracked. She told herself she was going to tell him to leave, to demand he release her from whatever hold he thought he had, to make it clear that their night together meant nothing. Liar, the voice in her head whispered. Second, she changed into a simple yellow sundress, the color of sunshine, of defiance, of Jamaica itself. She pulled her hair back into a high ponytail and slipped on her mother's gold hoop earrings. If young Woo-jin thought she'd dress up for him like she had in Seoul, he was wrong. The black SUV arrived exactly on time. The driver, a broad-shouldered Korean man in a dark suit, opened the door without speaking. Tia climbed in, her heart hammering. The drive to the Knutsford Court Hotel took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of Tia rehearsing what she'd say, how she'd stand, where she'd look to avoid seeming affected. But when the SUV pulled up to the hotel's entrance and she saw Solmara Ann waiting on the steps, impeccable as always in a tailored black suit despite the Kingston heat, all her prepared words evaporated. Miss Robinson," Solmara greeted her with a slight bow. "He's waiting in the penthouse suite." "Of course he is," Tia muttered. Solmara's lips curved slightly. "He asked me to tell you, you look beautiful in yellow." Tia's cheeks flushed. "How does he—" But Solmara was already walking toward the entrance. Tia followed, her stomach in knots. The Knutsford Court Hotel wasn't Jeonghwa Tower. It was nice, probably the nicest hotel in Kingston, but it was still Kingston, still Jamaica, still her world. Seeing Woo-jin here felt like watching two universes collide. Solmara led her to a private elevator, pressed the penthouse button, and stepped back. "He asked to see you alone," she said simply. The doors closed. Tia's reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls. "You can still leave," she told herself. "You can walk out of this hotel and never look back." But even as she thought it, she knew she wouldn't. The elevator opened directly into the suite, and there he was. Young Woo-jin stood at the window overlooking Kingston, just as he'd stood overlooking Seoul that first night. Same posture, same dark suit, same devastating presence. But something was different. He looked tired. Not physically. Woo-jin would probably look immaculate if the world were ending. But there was something in the set of his shoulders, the way he held himself, that suggested he'd been carrying weight he hadn't asked for. "Hello, Tia," he said without turning around. His voice sent shivers down her spine. "Why are you here?" she demanded, her voice sharper than intended. "To see you. You can't just—" She stopped, trying to control her anger. "What? You can't just fly halfway across the world and expect me to come running." Now he turned. And God, it hurt to look at him. He was exactly as beautiful as she remembered, exactly as dangerous. "I didn't expect you to come running," Woo-jin said calmly. "I expected you to come fighting, and here you are." Tia's jaw clenched. "What do you want?" "The same thing I've wanted since the moment you stepped into my tower," he replied, walking slowly toward her. "To understand why I can't stop thinking about you." Her breath caught. "That's not my problem." "Isn't it?" He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw. "You kissed me," Woo-jin said quietly, "in that penthouse. Well, you were free to leave and you kissed me. I was confused. You were honest. I was betraying the man I love," Tia shot back. "Were you?" Woo-jin tilted his head. "Or were you finally being honest about what you actually feel?" Tia wanted to slap him. Instead, she turned away. "I don't want you here." "Yes, you do." "I don't—" "Then why did you come?" His voice was maddeningly calm. "You could have ignored Solmara's message, could have blocked my number, could have moved, changed your name, Disappeared. He paused. But you're here. Tia spun to face him, eyes blazing. You said I wasn't free. What the hell does that mean? For the first time since she'd arrived, Woo Jin's perfect composure cracked. His jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. It means, he said slowly, that you've been living in my head for 3 weeks. It means I can't sleep without seeing your face. It means I came to a country I have no business being in because the alternative, never seeing you again, was unbearable. The confession hung between them like smoke. Tia's heart was racing so fast she felt dizzy. That's not love, she whispered. That's obsession. I know. His voice was rough, raw. And I don't care. Before she could respond, there was a sharp knock on the door. Both of them turned. The door opened, and Davis Thompson walked in. For a moment, nobody moved. Davis stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes locked on Woo Jin with an expression of pure terror mixed with rage. Tia's stomach dropped. Davis, what are you— I saw the car, Davis interrupted, his voice shaking. I saw you get in. I followed. His eyes cut to Woo Jin. You, Davis spat. You were supposed to let her go. Woo Jin's expression didn't change. I did. Then why the fuck are you in Kingston? I came to see her. She doesn't want to see you. Then she can tell me herself. Woo Jin looked at Tia, his gaze intense. Do you want me to leave, Tia? Every eye in the room turned to her. Davis, pleading and desperate. Woo Jin, calm and unreadable. And Tia, caught between two men who each claimed a different part of her soul. She opened her mouth, and the words that came out surprised all three of them. I don't know. Chapter 5. The silence in the penthouse suite was suffocating. Davis stood near the door, his chest heaving like he'd run a marathon. His fists were clenched at his sides, knuckles white with tension. He looked at Tia like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, and he was watching her fall. Woo Jin remained perfectly still by the window, hands in his pockets, expression carved from stone. But his eyes, those dark, fathomless eyes, never left Tia's face. And Tia stood between them, feeling like she was being torn in half. You don't know? Davis repeated, his voice cracking. Tia, what the hell does that mean? It means exactly what it sounds like, Tia said quietly, unable to meet his eyes. Davis took a step forward. This man held me hostage. He threatened to kill me. He made you— He stopped, swallowing hard. He made you do God knows what to save my life. And you don't know if you want him to leave? That's not fair, Davis. None of this is fair. Davis's voice rose. I've been waiting for 3 weeks for you to come back to me. 3 weeks of you looking at me like I'm a stranger. Yeah, and now I know why. He pointed at Woo Jin with a shaking hand. It's him. He got in your head. He made you think— I made her think nothing, Woo Jin interrupted, his voice low and cold. I gave her a choice, something you've never done. Davis's face twisted with rage. You don't know anything about us. I know you gave her up to save yourself, Woo Jin replied calmly. I know you kept secrets from her for 5 years. I know that when faced with death, you offered her like currency. He paused. I know you better than you know yourself, Davis Thompson. You're a coward wearing the mask of a good man. Davis lunged forward. Tia threw herself between them. Stop! Both of you, just stop! Her voice echoed through the suite like a gunshot. Both men froze. Tia turned to Davis first, her hand pressed against his chest. Go home. Davis. Tia, please. Her voice softened. I need to handle this alone. Davis looked down at her, his eyes swimming with tears. If I leave, you're choosing him. I'm not choosing anyone, Tia said firmly. I'm choosing me. And right now, I need space to figure out what that means. For a moment, Davis looked like he might argue. Then his shoulders sagged in defeat. I love you, Tia, he whispered. I've loved you since we were kids. That has to count for something. It does, Tia said softly. It counts for everything. But love isn't always enough. The words broke something in Davis's face. He looked past her at Woo Jin one last time, a look full of hatred and helplessness, then turned and walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Tia stood with her back to Woo Jin, her whole body trembling. You should go too, she said without turning around. No, I'm not asking. Neither am I. Tia spun to face him, anger flashing in her eyes. You can't just show up here and turn my life upside down. I already did, Woo Jin replied. The moment you stepped into my tower, both our lives changed. You can be angry about it. You can fight it, but you can't undo it. Watch me. She moved toward the door. Woo Jin's voice stopped her. There's someone you need to meet. Tia paused, her hand on the doorknob. What? Someone who knew your fiancé's brother. Someone who's been watching you since you returned from Seoul. He pulled out his phone and held it up. Someone who approached you this morning at the market. Tia's blood ran cold. She turned slowly. How do you know that? Because I've had people watching you since you left Korea. His expression was unreadable. To keep you safe. To keep me prisoner, you mean? No. Woo Jin's voice softened. To keep you alive. Before Tia could respond, there was another knock at the door. Woo Jin walked past her and opened it. Solmara Ann stood in the hallway, and beside her was a man Tia had never seen before. Except she had. That morning at the market, a man had bumped into her while she was buying peppers. He'd apologized in accented English, smiled charmingly, and disappeared into the crowd. She'd thought nothing of it. But now, seeing him again, everything inside her went cold. The man was tall and lean, with skin the color of aged mahogany and eyes that seemed too old for his face. He wore linen trousers and a cream-colored shirt, so looking more like a university professor than whatever he actually was. When he smiled, it didn't reach his eyes. Miss Robinson, he said, his voice smooth as rum. What a pleasure to finally meet you properly. My name is Calix Varel. Tia glanced at Woo Jin, who stood perfectly still, watching Calix the way a wolf watches a snake. Who are you? Tia asked. A businessman, Calix replied, stepping into the suite uninvited. A broker of information, a keeper of secrets. He walked to the window, looking out at Kingston with an expression of proprietary pride. I've lived in this city for 40 years, Miss Robinson. I know every street, every corner, every skeleton in every closet. Including Kellen Thompson's? Tia asked. Calix's smile widened. Especially Kellen Thompson's. Woo Jin closed the door and moved to stand beside Tia, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Tell her, Woo Jin said quietly. Calix turned from the window, folding his hands behind his back like a lecturer beginning class. Kellon Thompson worked for Aquilus Coro, Calix began. As you already know, what you don't know is that Aquilus was merely a middleman. The real power behind the weapons trafficking network was someone else, someone who's been operating in the shadows for decades. Who? Tia demanded. Calix's eyes gleamed. Me. The confession dropped like a stone. Tia took a step back. You? I built the network, Calix said with pride. Kingston to Busan, weapons, drugs, stolen artifacts, a pipeline that generated billions over the years. Aquilus was just the face. I was the mind. Then why are you telling me this? Tia asked, her voice shaking. Because 6 months ago, your friend here, Calix gestured at Woo Jin, killed Aquilus and took over his territory. But Mr. Jung didn't know about me. He thought he'd eliminated the problem. He was wrong. Woo Jin's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Calix continued, his voice taking on a darker edge. When Aquilus died, certain evidence was left behind. Shipping manifests, financial records, names of everyone involved in the network, including Kellen Thompson and Davis Thompson, and he paused for effect. Several of Mr. Young's own shipping routes that were unknowingly used to move illegal goods. Tia's stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying that your Korean king here is about to be implicated in one of the largest smuggling operations in Caribbean history. Calix's smile was poisonous. Unless, of course, someone intervenes. You, Tia whispered. Me. Calix walked toward her slowly. I can make this all go away. I can bury the evidence. I can ensure that Davis's debt is truly erased and that Mr. Young's reputation remains intact. In exchange for what? Calix stopped directly in front of her. An alliance, he said simply. Public, visible. You and I working together to expose the corrupt elements that have been plaguing Kingston's ports. We hold a press conference. We present carefully curated evidence. We become heroes. Tia's mind was racing. Why me? Because you're beloved in Waterhouse, Calix replied. You're the girl who grew up selling pastries, who lost both parents, who saved her fiancé through sheer determination. The people trust you, Miss Robinson, and trust is the most valuable currency in the world. This is a trap, Woo Jin said quietly. Calix turned to him with a smile. Of course it is, but it's a trap that benefits everyone. You get to protect your shipping empire. Miss Robinson gets to save her fiancé from further scrutiny. And I get to retire in peace, knowing my legacy is secure. And if we refuse? Tia asked. Calix's expression hardened. Then I release everything. Davis goes to prison for weapons trafficking. Mr. Young's entire Asian network gets investigated by international authorities. And you, Miss Robinson, he leaned closer. You get to watch everyone you love destroy each other. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were closing in. Tia looked at Woo Jin, whose face was unreadable. Can he actually do this? She asked quietly. Yes, Woo Jin replied. Then we don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Woo Jin's eyes never left Calix. The question is what you're willing to sacrifice. Calix clapped his hands together once. Wonderful. I knew you were a reasonable woman, Miss Robinson. We'll hold the press conference tomorrow. I've already arranged for media coverage. All you need to do is stand beside me, look appropriately concerned, and read from the statement I've prepared. What about Davis? Tia asked. What about him? If I do this, he stays out of it completely. His name isn't mentioned. Ever. Calix considered this. Agreed. Though I suspect Mr. Young might have his own conditions. All eyes turned to Woo Jin. He stood perfectly still, his expression carved from ice. If Tia participates in this charade, he said slowly, then I want full access to all of Aquilas's records, not just the ones you're planning to release. Everything. Calix raised an eyebrow. You don't trust me? I don't trust anyone. Fair enough. Calix extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Woo Jin didn't take it. Instead, he looked at Tia. This is your decision, he said quietly. Not mine, not Davis's, yours. Tia looked between the two men. Calix with his charming smile and ancient eyes, Woo Jin with his controlled power and hidden concern. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, but what choice did she have? Fine, Tia said. I'll do it. Calix's smile widened. Excellent. I'll be in touch with details. He nodded to both of them and walked to the door. Just before leaving, he turned back. Oh, and Miss Robinson, one more thing. What? Be careful who you trust, Calix said softly. In this world, everyone wears a mask, even the people who claim to love you. Then he was gone. The moment the door closed, Woo Jin moved to the window and pulled out his phone. Solmara, I need a full background check on Calix Viral. Everything. Financial records, property holdings, travel history for the last decade. I want to know who he's talked to, who he's paid, who he's killed. He paused, listening. Yes, top priority. And double the security on Miss Robinson. If anyone gets within 50 feet of her without clearance, I want to know about it. He hung up and turned to Tia. You shouldn't have agreed, he said. What was I supposed to do? Tia shot back. Let Davis go to prison? Let your entire operation collapse? Yes, His voice was hard. Both of those outcomes would be preferable to what Calix is planning. Which is what? I don't know yet. Wu Jin moved closer to her. But men like Calix Varel don't offer alliances out of kindness. He wants something, and he's using you to get it. Then help me figure out what it is. I intend to. He reached out and touched her chin gently, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. But Tia, you need to understand something. From the moment you agreed to work with him, you became a target, not just from whatever Calix is planning, but from everyone who has a stake in this network. I can handle myself. I know you can. His thumb brushed across her cheek, so soft it made her shiver. But I'm not willing to take that chance. Why? The word came out as barely a whisper. Why do you care so much? Wu Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything again. Because when I look at you, I don't see a transaction or an asset or a means to an end. His voice was raw. I see the only person who's ever made me want to be someone different than who I am. Tia's breath caught. Before she could respond, Wu Jin stepped back, his mask sliding back into place. Solmara will take you home, he said. Don't leave your house tonight. My people will be watching. And you? I have work to do. He walked toward the door. Wu Jin, Tia called out. He stopped but didn't turn around. You think our night ended at dawn, she said quietly, echoing words he'd said before. For me, it began there too. She saw his shoulders tense. Then he opened the door and disappeared into the hallway. Tia stood alone in the penthouse, her heart racing, knowing she'd just crossed another line she couldn't uncross. When Tia finally left the hotel 20 minutes later, guided by Solmara's efficient presence, she didn't notice the man standing across the street. He was partially hidden in the shadow of a breadfruit tree, his phone pressed to his ear. She's agreed, the man said quietly in heavily accented English. The press conference is tomorrow. A voice on the other end responded, low, pleased, dangerous. Perfect, Calix Varel's voice purred through the phone. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. By tomorrow night, young Wu Jin will have lost the only thing he's ever cared about, and Miss Robinson will understand what happens to people who stand between me and what I want. And if she tries to back out? Calix's laugh was soft and cruel. Then we remind her that love makes people do terrible things, and sometimes the people we love most are the ones who destroy us. The line went dead. The man pocketed his phone and watched as Tia climbed into the black SUV. He knew something she didn't. Something even Wu Jin didn't know yet. Tomorrow's press conference wasn't just about exposing corruption. It was about igniting a war. And Tia Robinson had just become the match. Chapter 6. Tia woke before dawn to the sound of rain hammering against the zinc roof. Of course it's raining, she thought bitterly. It always rains when everything's about to fall apart. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to water drum against metal, and wondering how her life had spiraled so completely out of control in less than a month. 4 weeks ago, she'd been a woman with a simple life. Work, church, Davis, plans for a future that looked modest but safe. Now she was caught between a Korean Mafia king and a Jamaican criminal mastermind, about to stand in front of cameras and lie to an entire nation. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Calix Varel. Car arrives at 9 a.m. Wear something that says trustworthy. Blue is good. See you soon, partner. Partner, the word made her skin crawl. Another message. This one from Solmara. Solmara Ann. Mr. Young asks that you call him before the press conference. It's important. Tia stared at both messages, then turned her phone face down and got out of bed. She needed to think, needed to pray, needed to figure out if what she was about to do was the right thing or the worst mistake of her life. At 8:30 a.m., Tia finally called Wu Jin. He answered on the first ring. Tia, his voice was strained in a way she'd never heard before. Where are you? Home. The car comes in 30 minutes. Don't get in it. Tia's heart skipped. What? I spent all night digging into Calyx Viral, Woojin said rapidly. He's not just a broker, Tia. He's a ghost. No financial records before 1985, no birth certificate, no family. It's like he appeared out of nothing 40 years ago. So, maybe he changed his identity. Or maybe he's working for someone bigger. Woojin's voice was urgent. I also found something else. 3 journalists who investigated the smuggling network over the years. All 3 died within 6 months of publishing their findings. Car accidents, house fires, 1 drowning. Tia's blood ran cold. You think Calyx? I think this press conference is a trap, Woojin interrupted. I think he's going to use you to expose selective information while burying the rest. And once you've served your purpose... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I can't back out now, Tia said quietly. If I don't show up, he releases everything. Davis goes to prison. Your empire collapses. Everyone loses. Better that than you dying. The words hung in the air. You don't get to make that choice for me, Tia said softly. Woojin was silent for a long moment. No, he finally said. I don't. But Tia, promise me something. What? If anything feels wrong during that press conference, if Calyx says something unexpected or if you see anything suspicious, you run. You don't think. You don't hesitate. You run. My people will be there. They'll get you out. Your people? I'm not letting you walk into this alone. Despite everything, Tia felt warmth bloom in her chest. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Woojin replied. This isn't over. Outside, a car horn honked. Tia looked out the window. A white Mercedes with tinted windows sat in front of her house. He's here, she said. Tia, I have to go. Be careful. I will. She hung up before he could say anything else. Now before he could make her doubt what she was about to do. The press conference was held at the Jamaica Conference Center, a sprawling complex in downtown Kingston that hosted everything from political rallies to beauty pageants. By the time Tia arrived, the main auditorium was packed. News cameras, journalists, government officials, representatives from the Ports Authority, even a few foreign correspondents who'd gotten wind that something big was happening. Calyx stood at the center of it all, looking every bit the concerned citizen in an impeccable gray suit. When he saw Tia, his face broke into a warm smile. Miss Robinson, he said loudly enough for nearby microphones to catch. Thank you for being brave enough to stand with me today. He took her hand and squeezed it. Tia forced herself to smile back even though her skin was crawling. Places, everyone, someone called out. Calyx led her to a raised platform where a podium bristled with microphones. Behind them was a large screen displaying the Jamaica Ports Authority logo. Tia scanned the crowd looking for Woojin's people. She spotted them immediately. 3 men in dark suits scattered throughout the auditorium. 2 still, 2 watchful, Korean. One of them, a man with a scar above his left eye, made brief eye contact with her and nodded almost imperceptibly. They're here. The thought was oddly comforting. Ladies and gentlemen, Calyx began, his voice booming through the speakers. Thank you for joining us today for what I believe will be a historic moment in Jamaica's fight against corruption. The crowd quieted. For decades, some criminal elements have been using our ports to smuggle weapons, drugs, and stolen artifacts. They've grown rich while our nation suffered. They've operated in the shadows while good people looked the away. He paused dramatically. Today, that ends. Applause rippled through the audience. Calyx continued. Standing beside me is Miss Tia Robinson. Some of you may know her story. She grew up in Waterhouse, lost both parents at a young age. She represents the best of what Jamaica can be. Resilient, honest, and unafraid to stand up for what's right. Tia felt nausea rising in her throat. Miss Robinson recently discovered evidence linking several shipping companies, both local and international, to this smuggling network. With her help, we've been able to trace shipments, identify key players, and begin the process of bringing these criminals to justice. The screen behind them flickered to life. Documents appeared, shipping manifests, financial transfers, and then a name that made Tia's heart stop: Jonghua Shipping Corporation. The crowd murmured. Journalists began shouting questions. Tia's vision tunneled. "No," Calix's voice continued, smooth and confident. "We've discovered that the Jonghua Corporation, a Korean conglomerate owned by Jung Woo-jin, has been unknowingly facilitating the transport of illegal goods through their routes. Now, to be clear, we have no evidence that Mr. Jung himself was aware of this. But his company's negligence has enabled—" "That's a lie!" Tia's voice cut through the auditorium like a knife. Every head turned toward her. Calix's smile froze. "I'm sorry? That's a lie," Tia repeated. Her voice stronger now. She stepped away from Calix toward the microphones. "Jonghua Corporation didn't enable anything. They were victims of the same smuggling network that targeted Jamaican ports." Calix's expression darkened. "Miss Robinson, we discussed you using me to destroy an innocent man's reputation," Tia interrupted. She turned to face the crowd fully. "My name is Tia Robinson, and I'm here to tell you the truth." Chaos erupted. Journalists shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Calix grabbed Tia's arm roughly. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She yanked her arm free. "What I should have done from the beginning, telling the truth." Security guards started moving toward the platform. But before they could reach her, the 3 Korean men stood simultaneously, blocking their path. Tia pulled a USB drive from her pocket, one that Woo-jin had given her that morning before she'd left the hotel, just in case. She held it up. "This drive contains the real evidence, financial records showing that Calix Varel, the man standing next to me, has been running the smuggling operation for 40 years. Aquilus Coro was just his puppet. And he's been using falsified documents to frame Jung Woo-jin because 6 months ago, Mr. Jung shut down his operation." The auditorium exploded into noise. Calix's mask finally slipped. His charming expression twisted into something ugly and cold. "You stupid girl," he hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" "Yes," Tia said. "I've stopped you." Calix laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Stopped me? You've just signed your own death warrant." "And his." He gestured toward the back of the auditorium. Tia followed his gaze, and her world stopped. There, being dragged through the back entrance by 2 of Calix's men, was Davis. Beaten, bloody, barely conscious. Tia's scream was swallowed by the chaos. Calix leaned close to her ear. "You want to play hero, Miss Robinson? Fine. But heroes always lose what they love most." He snapped his fingers. His men started dragging Davis toward the exit. Tia jumped off the platform and ran. Behind her, she heard gunshots, screaming, the press conference dissolving into pandemonium. But all she could see was Davis disappearing through the doors. All she could think was, "Not again. Please God, not again." She burst through the exit into a back alley just in time to see Calix's men throwing Davis into a van. "No!" Tia screamed, running toward them. One of the men turned and pointed a gun at her. Time slowed. She saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw the barrel aimed at her chest, saw her death approaching at 1,200 feet per second. And then a figure slammed into the gunman from the side, sending the shot wild. The bullet sparked off the pavement inches from Tia's feet. She looked up. Jung Woo-jin stood between her and the gunman, his suit jacket torn, his face bleeding from a cut above his eyebrow, but his eyes were blazing with fury. "Touch her," he said quietly, "and I'll kill every single one of you." "I cannot breathe. Woo-jin just literally took a bullet for Tia, and I'm not okay. Comment protect her if you're on Team Woo-jin right now. We've got 3 more chapters, and I promise you it only gets more intense. All hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next." Chapter 7. Everything happened in seconds, but Tia experienced it in slow motion. Woo-jin moved like liquid violence. He disarmed the first gunman with a brutal efficiency that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times before. Grabbing the man's wrist, twisting until she heard bone snap, then using the momentum to throw him against the brick wall. The man crumpled like paper. The second gunman raised his weapon. Wu Jin was faster. He closed the distance in 3 strides and delivered a strike to the man's throat that dropped him instantly, choking and gasping. The van's engine roared to life. Tia could see Davis through the back window, barely conscious, his face pressed against the glass, blood streaking down his temple. "Davis!" she screamed, starting to run toward the van. Tia Woojin grabbed her around the waist and pulled her back, just as the van peeled out of the alley, tires screeching against asphalt. "Let me go!" Tia fought against him. "They have Davis! They're taking him!"
"I know." Woojin's voice was hard. "And if you run after that van, they'll take you too."
"I don't care." "I do." He spun her around to face him, his hands gripping her shoulders.
"Listen to me,"
he said urgently.
"Calix wants you emotional, wants you making stupid decisions. That's how he wins. We're going to get Davis back, but not by running blindly into a trap."
"How do you know it's a trap?" "Because it's what I would do." Behind them, the sound of sirens grew louder. Police, probably called by panicked conference attendees. Woojin's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, read something, then cursed in Korean. "What?" Tia demanded.
"Solmara just sent footage from inside the conference center." He turned the phone toward her. "Watch."
The video showed the moments after Tia had revealed the USB drive. In the chaos, Calix had slipped away through a side exit, but before leaving, he'd turned toward one of the news cameras and said something directly into the lens. Woojin unmuted the audio. Calix's voice was calm, almost gentle. "Young Woojin, if you want your little Jamaican flower to see her fiancé alive again, come to the old Coro warehouse at midnight. Come alone, or Davis Thompson's body becomes fish food." The video ended. Tia felt her knees go weak. "The Coro warehouse. Where is that?" "The docks, West Kingston." Woojin pocketed his phone. "It's where Aquilus used to run his operation before I killed him." "Then we go there." "No. I go there. Like hell." "Tia." Woojin's voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. "He said come alone. If I bring you, Davis dies. If I bring backup, Davis dies. The only way to save him is for me to walk into that warehouse by myself and negotiate." "That's insane. He'll kill you." "Probably." Woojin's expression was unreadable. "But that's a risk I'm willing to take." "Why?" The word burst out of her. "Why would you risk your life for Davis? You don't even like him." Woojin looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something that broke her heart. "Because you love him. And He stopped, jaw tightening. "I'm not willing to see you in that much pain, even if it means saving the man who gets to be loved by you." Tears burned behind Tia's eyes. "Woojin!" Sirens screamed around the corner. "We need to move." Woojin grabbed her hand. "Nah, my car is 2 blocks away. We'll figure out the plan on the way." They ran. Woojin didn't take her to the hotel. Instead, they drove to a modest house in the hills above Kingston, a place that looked completely unremarkable from the outside but was clearly a safe house. Steel-reinforced doors, security cameras, bulletproof windows. Inside, Solmara Ann was already waiting, her laptop open on a dining table covered in maps and documents. "Status," Woojin said immediately. "The press conference is all over the news," Solmara reported, "both local and international. The USB drive Tia revealed is being analyzed by the Ports Authority and the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Calix Varel is now officially a wanted man." "Good. What about Davis Thompson?"
"No confirmed sightings since the abduction."
"But we intercepted phone chatter suggesting he's being held at the warehouse as promised." Solmara paused. "Sir, this is obviously a trap." "I know. You can't seriously be considering going alone." "I am." Solmara's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. Years of working with Woojin had taught her when pushing back was futile. Tia, however, had no such restraint. "This is suicide," she said flatly. "Calix has been planning this for months, maybe years. He's not going to let you walk out of that warehouse alive." "Then I won't walk out." Woojin moved to the table and studied the maps. I'll make sure Davis does. And what about me? Tia's voice cracked. You think I can live with that? You dying because of me? Woojin looked up from the maps, his expression softening in a way that made him look almost vulnerable. You'll survive, he said quietly. You're the strongest person I've ever met, Tia Robinson. You'll grieve, you'll heal, you'll marry Davis and have children and grow old in Waterhouse exactly like you planned. I don't want that anymore. The confession fell from her lips before she could stop it. The room went silent. Solmera glanced between them, then quietly excused herself. I'll check the perimeter. She left. Tia and Woojin stood on opposite sides of the table, the maps between them suddenly feeling like an ocean. What did you say? Woojin asked carefully. I said I don't want that anymore. Tia's hands were shaking. I don't know when it changed. Maybe when you tore up that contract. Maybe when you showed up in Kingston. Maybe when you stood between me and that bullet today. She swallowed hard. But somewhere along the way, I stopped wanting the life I had planned, because that life doesn't have you in it. Woojin closed his eyes like he was in pain. Tia, don't. She held up a hand. Don't tell me this is impossible. Don't tell me we're from different worlds. Don't tell me it's too complicated. I know all of that, but I also know that when you look at me, I feel more real than I've ever felt in my life. That's not love, Woojin said, his voice strained. That's adrenaline, trauma bonding, the intensity of the situation making you think, do you love me? The question stopped him cold. Tia walked around the table until she was standing directly in front of him. Do you love me? She repeated. Yes or no? Woojin looked at her with an expression so raw it made her chest ache. Yes, he whispered. God help me. Yes. Yes, from the moment you stepped into my tower and looked at me like I was just a man instead of a monster, yes, I've loved you in ways I didn't know I was capable of loving anyone. Tia felt tears sliding down her cheeks. Then don't go to that warehouse alone, she begged. Please, we'll find another way. There is no other way. Woojin cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. Calix wants me dead. He's wanted it since the moment I took over his territory. If I don't go, he'll kill Davis. Then he'll come for you. And I will burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you. So you'll let yourself be hurt instead? If that's what it takes to keep you safe? Yes. He leaned down until their foreheads touched. In a heartbeat. They stood like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, existing in the same space, letting the truth of what they felt settle between them. Then Woojin pulled back. I need you to promise me something, he said. What? If I don't come back from that warehouse, don't. You'll take the money I transferred to your account and leave Kingston. Start over somewhere new, somewhere Calix can't find you. Woojin, promise me, Tia. She looked into his eyes and saw that he was serious. I promise, she lied, because they both knew she wouldn't run. Not when the man she loved was walking into death. Not when Davis's life hung in the balance. Not when everything she cared about was about to explode. While Woojin made phone calls in Korean to what sounded like every contact he had in the Caribbean, Tia sat at the dining table staring at the documents Solmara had spread out. Shipping manifests. At financial records, photographs of men she didn't recognize, and then a folder labeled Aquilas Coro, personal files. Tia opened it. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, and a series of photographs that made her blood run cold. The first photo showed Aquilas Coro, a heavy-set man with cold eyes, standing outside a warehouse. The Coro warehouse, she assumed. The second photo showed Aquilas with another man, younger, familiar. Tia's heart stopped. She knew that face. She'd known it her entire life. No, she whispered. No, that's not possible. But the evidence was right there in black and white. The man standing next to Aquilas Coro, shaking his hand and smiling, was Kellen Thompson, Davis's dead brother. Except in this photo, taken just 6 months ago, Kellen looked very much alive. Tia's hands shook as she flipped through more photos. Kellon at the docks, Kellon loading cargo, Kellon meeting with men who had the cold, efficient look of professional criminals. The dates on the photos were all recent: January 2025, February 2025, March 2025, after he was supposed to have died in that house fire. "Woojin!" Tia called out, her voice shaking. "Woojin, you need to see this." He ended his call immediately and crossed to her side. "What is it?" She showed him the photos. His expression darkened. "Where did you get these?" "They were in the Aquilas files." Tia looked up at him. "Kellen Thompson isn't dead. He's been alive this whole time, which means—" "Davis has been lying to you about more than just the debt," Woojin finished grimly. Tia felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. "Why?" she whispered. "Well, why would Davis lie about his brother being dead?" Woojin pulled out his phone and dialed. "Solmara, I need you to run facial recognition on these photos. Cross-reference with every known associate of Calix Virel." He paused, listening. Then his expression shifted into something Tia had never seen before. Pure, cold fury. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly. Solmara's response was inaudible to Tia, but whatever she said made Woojin's jaw clench. He hung up and turned to Tia. "Kellen Thompson has been working with Calix Viril for the past 5 years," he said. "He faked his own death to avoid prosecution for weapons trafficking. And Davis—" He paused. "Davis has been in contact with him the entire time." The words hit Tia like a physical blow. "No," she said. "So Davis wouldn't— he couldn't—" "Solmara just pulled Davis's phone records," Woojin continued relentlessly. "He's been calling a burner phone registered to an address in St. Elizabeth 3 times a week for the past 2 years. That address belongs to Kellen." Tia couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was hearing. "Davis knew his brother was alive," she whispered. "This whole time, the debt, the kidnapping, all of it was likely staged," Woojin finished. "To get you to Seoul, to get you close to me, so Calix could use you to expose my shipping routes and destroy my reputation." Tia stood abruptly, the chair falling backward. "I need air," she gasped. "I can't. I need—" She stumbled toward the door. Woojin caught her before she could fall, pulling her against his chest. "Breathe," he said firmly. "Tia, breathe." But she couldn't, because the man she'd loved since childhood had betrayed her, had sold her, had used her love as a weapon, and she'd been too blind to see it. Tia didn't cry. Instead, something inside her crystallized into diamond-hard fury. She pulled away from Woojin, her eyes blazing. "I'm coming with you to that warehouse," she said. "Absolutely not." "He used me," Tia said, her voice shaking with rage. "Davis and Kellen and Calix, they all used me like I was a pawn in their sick game. And you think I'm going to sit here and let you walk into their trap alone?" "Yes," Woojin's voice was firm, "because I'm not giving them another hostage to use against me. I'm not asking for permission." She turned and walked toward the door where she'd seen Solmara's weapons bag earlier. Woojin caught her arm. "Tia, let go." The words were ice. Woojin looked at her, really looked at her, and seemed to realize that the woman standing before him had fundamentally changed in the last 10 minutes. The girl who believed in love and loyalty and happy endings was gone. In her place was someone harder, angrier, dangerous. He released her arm. "If you come," he said quietly, "you follow my lead. No improvising, no heroics. Calix is not a man you can fight with courage and determination. He's a monster who's been playing this game since before you were born." "Then it's time someone changed the rules." Tia grabbed a bulletproof vest from Solmara's bag and started putting it on. Woojin watched her for a moment, then did something unexpected. He smiled. Not his usual controlled, calculated smile, but something genuine, proud, even. "So, you're magnificent when you're angry," he said. "Save the compliments," Tia replied, checking the vest's straps. We have a warehouse to raid. The Coro warehouse sat on the western edge of Kingston's industrial port like a rotting tooth, abandoned officially for years but clearly still in use. Fresh tire tracks, working lights visible through grimy windows, the smell of diesel and salt water thick in the air. Woo Jin's team assembled in the darkness 200 yards away, 8 men total, all Korean, all moving with military precision. Solmara handed out earpieces and weapons. "Rules of engagement?" one of the men asked in Korean. Woo Jin responded in the same language, but Tia caught enough words to understand. Minimize casualties. Prioritize the hostage. If Calix Viral resists, kill him. At 11:55 p.m., Woo Jin turned to Tia.
Last chance to stay in the car," he said. "Not happening."
"Then stay close to me. If shooting starts, you drop and you don't move until I tell you it's clear." "Fine. And Tia?" He caught her chin gently.
"Whatever you see in there, whatever Davis says or does, remember that he made his choices. You don't owe him your life."
"I know. Do you?" She met his eyes. "I'm here for you, not him." Something in Woo Jin's expression softened. Then he kissed her, fierce and brief and desperate.
"For luck,"
he murmured against her lips. "We don't need luck," Tia replied. "We need vengeance." At exactly midnight, they moved. The warehouse was massive, 3 stories of rusted metal and rotting wood, with catwalks crisscrossing overhead and shipping containers stacked like a maze below. Woo Jin's team spread out silently, steady covering exits and high points. Tia stayed close to Woo Jin as they moved deeper into the building. And then they heard it. Voices, coming from the center of the warehouse. They approached carefully, using containers for cover. What they saw made Tia's blood boil. Davis was tied to a chair in the middle of an open space, his face bruised and bloody. But he was conscious, alert, and standing beside him, very much alive, was Kellen Thompson, taller than Davis, broader, with the same eyes but none of the warmth. And behind them both, sitting in a leather chair like a king on a throne, was Calix Viral.
"Ah," Calix said, his voice echoing through the warehouse. "Right on time. I was beginning to think you'd be fashionable late, Mr. Young."
Woo Jin stepped out from behind the container, hands visible, no weapon drawn.
"I'm here,"
he said calmly. "Let Davis go." "Let him go?" Calix laughed. "My dear boy, you misunderstand the situation entirely. Davis isn't a hostage." He gestured, and Kellen cut the ropes binding Davis to the chair. Davis stood slowly, rubbing his wrists, and smiled. "He's an accomplice," Calix finished. Tia felt her heart shatter into pieces. Davis looked directly at her for the first time.
"Sorry, Tia,"
he said, not sounding sorry at all.
"But you were always too good for someone like me, and way too valuable to waste on a simple life in Waterhouse."
"You bastard," Tia breathed.
Davis shrugged. "Business, nothing personal."
"You used me."
"Yeah."
Davis's smile was cruel. "I did, and you made it so easy. All I had to do was play the scared fiancé and you came running, flew all the way to Seoul, spent the night with the big bad Mafia king." He laughed.
You really thought he wanted you for you? He wanted access to our network, and you gave it to him."
"That's not true," Tia said, but her voice wavered. "Isn't it?"
Davis looked at Woo Jin. Tell her this was all part of your plan to take over Calix's territory."
Woo Jin said nothing. His silence was devastating. "Woo Jin?" Tia whispered. He wouldn't meet her eyes. And Tia realized, too late, that she'd been played by everyone. Every single person she'd trusted had used her. Davis, Kellen, Calix, even Woo Jin. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not—" "I'm sorry," Woo Jin said quietly, finally looking at her, and in his eyes she saw guilt. "I never meant for you to get hurt, but Davis is right. I needed access to Calix's network, and you were the perfect way in." Tia felt something inside her die. "So everything," she said, at her voice hollow. The contract, the night together, coming to Kingston, all of it was a lie? Not all of it. Woo Jin's voice cracked slightly. What I feel for you, that's real. But the circumstances that brought you to me, those were calculated. Calix stood, clapping slowly. Bravo, he said. Truly, I couldn't have orchestrated this better myself. Now, his expression turned cold. Everyone dies. He pulled out a gun and aimed it at Tia's head. Chapter 8. Time crystallized into a single frozen moment. Calix's finger on the trigger, the barrel aimed at Tia's forehead. Davis's cruel smile faltering just slightly. Kellen's expression, bored almost. And Woo Jin. Woo Jin moved, not toward Calix, toward Tia. He threw himself in front of her just as the gun fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, a crack that seemed to split the world in two. Tia felt Woo Jin's body slam into hers, driving them both behind a shipping container as the bullet sparked off metal where her head had been a second earlier. Shoot them! Calix roared, and the warehouse exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Woo Jin's men opened fire from their hidden positions on the catwalks. Calix's people, at least a dozen she hadn't seen before, emerged from behind containers and returned fire. Woo Jin pressed Tia against the container, his body covering hers completely. Stay down, he commanded. You lied to me, she said, her voice breaking even in the middle of a firefight. I know. You used me. I know. So why are you protecting me now? Woo Jin pulled back just enough to look at her, set his eyes fierce. Because I might have calculated how to meet you, he said, but I didn't calculate falling in love with you. That part was real, Tia. That part is the only real thing I've done in my entire goddamn life. Another volley of gunfire cut off her response. Woo Jin's earpiece crackled, Solmara's voice urgent in Korean. He responded rapidly, then looked at Tia. There's an exit on the north side. Solmara's bringing a car around. I'm getting you out of here. What about Davis? Fuck Davis. He tried to have you killed. Woo Jin's control finally cracked. He sold you to save himself. He's been working with the people who've been trying to destroy both of us. He doesn't deserve your loyalty. Maybe not, Tia said. Oh, but I deserve to look him in the eye and hear the truth from his mouth. Before Woo Jin could stop her, Tia grabbed the gun from his waistband and stepped out from behind the container. TIA, no! But she was already moving. The gunfire had created a temporary stalemate. Woo Jin's men controlled the high ground but couldn't advance without exposing themselves. Calix's people were pinned behind containers but had numbers, and in the center of it all stood Davis and Kellon, caught in no man's land. Tia walked toward them with the gun raised, her hands steady despite the adrenaline screaming through her veins. Tia! Davis's eyes went wide. Baby, wait! Don't call me that! Her voice was ice. Don't you ever call me that again! She stopped 10 feet away, the gun aimed at Davis's chest. Around them, the shooting had paused. Everyone watching this tableau unfold. Tell me the truth, Tia said. All of it. You owe me that much. Davis looked at Kellen, who nodded slightly. Fine, Davis said, his mask of fear finally dropping completely. You want the truth? Here it is. Kellen didn't die 5 years ago. He faked his death to escape prosecution. I helped him. We've been working with Calix ever since. Why? Money, power, a way out of Waterhouse. Davis laughed bitterly. You think I wanted to spend my life poor, watching my mother scrub floors and beg for grocery money? Kellen found a way out. He got me in. And yeah, it meant lying to you, but I figured you'd never know. Until Jung Woo Jin killed Aquilas, Tia said. Until that. Davis nodded. When Woo Jin took over the territory, Calix needed a way to destroy him. And I remembered you mentioning that Jung Woo Jin was from Korea, that he controlled shipping routes. It was too perfect. Tia's stomach turned. So you staged your own kidnapping. Kellon's guys roughed me up a bit to make it convincing, Davis admitted. But yeah,
We knew you'd do anything to save me. We counted on it. You flew to Seoul, spent the night with Woo Jin, came back with evidence of his involvement in Caribbean shipping. All according to plan.
Except I didn't come back with evidence against him, Tia said. I came back in love with him.
Davis's face twisted.
That wasn't supposed to happen. But it did.
Tia's voice was steady despite the tears streaming down her face.
I fell in love with the man you wanted me to destroy. And you know what the worst part is? He might have calculated how to meet me. But he never pretended to be something he wasn't. He never lied about who he was. He was always honest about being a monster.
She turned the gun slightly toward Calix.
Unlike all of you.
Calix smiled. Touching, truly. But here's the problem, Miss Robinson. You can't shoot all of us, and the moment you fire that gun, my men will cut you down.
I know, Tia said, but I can shoot one of you, so here's my question. Which one of you deserves it most?
She looked at Davis.
The man who claimed to love me but sold me like property?
Then at Kellen.
The brother who taught Davis that people are commodities?
Then at Calix.
Or the monster who orchestrated all of this?
Tia, Woo Jin's voice came from behind her, calm but urgent.
Don't do this. He's not worth it.
Maybe not, Tia replied without turning around.
But I'm worth it. Geesh, I'm worth choosing myself for once. I'm worth standing up for myself. I'm worth...
Davis lunged for her, and Tia pulled the trigger. The bullet caught Davis in the shoulder, not a kill shot, but enough to spin him around and send him crashing to the ground. He screamed, clutching the wound.
You shot me! He roared. You actually shot me!
Yes, Tia said calmly. I did. Consider us even. All hell broke loose. Calix raised his gun toward Tia. Woo Jin's men opened fire from the catwalks. Kellen dove for cover, pulling Davis with him, and Woo Jin reached Tia, tackling her behind a container as bullets rained where she'd been standing.
What the hell were you thinking? He demanded. I was thinking I'm done being everyone's victim, Tia shot back.
Oh, despite everything, despite the gunfire and chaos and death surrounding them, Woo Jin laughed.
You're insane, he said. I learned from the best.
He kissed her hard and desperate, tasting like gunpowder and inevitability.
If we survive this, he murmured against her lips, I'm never letting you out of my sight again.
If we survive this, Tia replied, I'm holding you to that.
Solmara's voice crackled through the earpiece. Sir, car is in position. North exit, 30 seconds.
Woo Jin nodded.
Can you run? Can you keep up?
Another smile, this one tinged with something that might have been hope.
Let's find out.
They ran. The warehouse was a war zone. Woo Jin pulled Tia through the maze of containers, moving with the kind of practiced efficiency that came from years of surviving impossible situations. Behind them,
Xiao Calix's voice echoed, Stop them! I want them both dead!
Gunfire chased their heels. Woo Jin returned fire without looking, his shots precise and deadly. They reached the north exit just as Solmara pulled up in a black SUV, tires smoking.
Go, 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 she shouted.
Woo Jin threw open the back door and practically tossed Tia inside, then dove in after her. Solmara punched the accelerator. The SUV fishtailed, then rocketed forward. Through the back window, Tia could see men pouring out of the warehouse, firing after them. One bullet spiderwebbed the rear window but didn't penetrate. Bulletproof glass, Solmara said calmly. One of Mr. Jung's better investments. Tia looked at Woo Jin, who was checking his own body for wounds methodically. Are you hit? She asked.
No. You?
No. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them processing what had just happened. Then Tia said the thing she'd been holding inside since the warehouse. You lied to me. You calculated meeting me. You used my situation to get access to Calix's network.
Yes,
Woo Jin said quietly. I did. Why tell me the truth now? He looked at her, his eyes exhausted and honest. Because Davis was going to tell you anyway, and I wanted you to hear it from me first, even if it destroyed what we had.
I'd rather you hate me for being honest than love me for a lie. Tia processed this. I don't hate you, she said finally. Woo Jin's expression flickered with hope. You don't? No, I hate that you lied. I hate that you calculated our meeting. I hate that I don't know what's real and what was strategy. She took a breath. But I don't hate you. Because unlike everyone else who's betrayed me, you told me the truth when you didn't have to. Does that make me better or worse? Woo Jin asked, something raw in his voice. It makes you human, Tia replied. And right now, that's enough. Solmara caught Tia's eye in the rearview mirror. For what it's worth, she said, everything he's done in the last 3 weeks has been completely off script. The trip to Kingston, the press conference backup, risking his life tonight. She paused. In 5 years of working for Mr. Jung, I've never seen him deviate from a plan. Until you. Tia looked at Woo Jin. Is that true? He was quiet for a moment. Yes, he admitted. The plan was to use your connection to Davis to infiltrate Calix's network. That part is true, but everything after you stepped into my tower, that wasn't planned. That was... He struggled for words. That was me realizing that some people are worth abandoning plans for. Before Tia could respond, Solmara's phone rang. She answered, listened, then cursed in Korean. What? Woo Jin demanded. News report just broke. Someone leaked footage from inside the warehouse. The shooting. Everything. Solmara's voice was tight. It's going viral. Jamaican authorities are issuing warrants for everyone involved. Including us? Tia asked. Including everyone. Woo Jin's jaw tightened. How much time do we have? Maybe an hour before they lock down the airport and seaports. Then we run, Woo Jin said. Tia, I have a jet fueled and waiting at a private airstrip in Portmore. We can be in the air in 40 minutes, out of Jamaican jurisdiction in 2 hours. And go where? Anywhere, everywhere. So does it matter? Tia looked at him. This man who'd entered her life like a storm, who'd lied and calculated and manipulated his way into her world, but who'd also stood between her and bullets, who'd kissed her like she was the last beautiful thing on earth, who'd admitted his sins without excuses. What about Calix? She asked. He'll come after us, Woo Jin said honestly. Probably for the rest of our lives. This doesn't end tonight, Tia. If you come with me, you're choosing a life of looking over your shoulder, of never being safe, of being hunted. Sounds familiar, Tia said with a ghost of a smile. I've been hunted since I flew to Seoul. That was different. Was it? Woo Jin looked at her for a long moment. Come with me, he said quietly. Not because you have to, not because you're afraid. Oh, but because you want to. It was the same choice he'd given her in the penthouse all those weeks ago. The same freedom, the same terrifying possibility. Tia thought about Davis lying on that warehouse floor, bleeding from a wound she'd given him. She thought about the life she'd planned, simple, safe, contained. She thought about her mother's house in Waterhouse, the church choir, Sunday dinners with Miss Yvette, everything she'd be leaving behind. And then she thought about standing in a glass tower overlooking Seoul, feeling more alive than she'd ever felt in her life. She thought about Woo Jin's hands cupping her face like she was something precious. She thought about choosing herself for the first time in her life. Okay, she said. Okay? Take me anywhere, Tia said. Take me everywhere. Just promise me one thing. Anything. No more lies. No more calculations. From this moment forward, everything between us is real, or I walk. Woo Jin reached for her hand and pressed it against his chest, over his heart. I swear, he said. From this moment forward, everything is real. The SUV turned onto the road leading to the airstrip, and Tia Robinson, daughter of Waterhouse, survivor of loss, woman who'd crossed an ocean for love, made her choice. She chose the monster who'd learned to be human. She chose the life that had no script. She chose herself. The private airstrip was little more than a runway and a hangar surrounded by sugarcane fields. Woo Jin's jet sat illuminated in the darkness, sleek and black and ready. Solmara pulled up beside it. 15 minutes, she said. Yeah, then we're wheels up. They climbed out of the SUV. Tia looked back at Kingston one last time, the lights of the city glowing in the distance, the place where she'd lived her entire life. Goodbye, she thought. Goodbye to everything I was. Tia, she turned. Wu Jin stood at the base of the jet stairs, his hand extended toward her. Last chance to change your mind, he said. She walked toward him, each step feeling like a small death and a small rebirth. When she reached him, she didn't take his hand. She kissed him instead. No more last chances, she said against his lips. We're all in now. Together? Together. They climbed the stairs. Behind them, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The jet door sealed shut. Engines roared to life, and as the plane lifted off the runway, all carrying them away from everything they'd known, Tia looked at Wu Jin and saw her future. Uncertain, dangerous, unplanned, perfect. They'd been in the air for 20 minutes when Solmara's face went pale. Sir, she said, looking at her laptop, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where Calix Viral isn't dead. Wu Jin straightened. Explain. Reports coming in from Kingston. The warehouse fire. You saw it, right? When we were leaving? Yes. They just pulled 6 bodies from the wreckage. None of them were Calix. Solmara turned the laptop around. And 5 minutes ago, this was posted to every major news network in the Caribbean. The screen showed a video. Calix Viral sat in what looked like an expensive hotel room, completely unharmed, smiling at the camera. Good evening, he said pleasantly. My name is Calix Viral, and I'd like to tell you a story about a Korean criminal named Young Woo Jin who came to Jamaica to steal our cultural heritage. Tia's blood ran cold. The video continued. What you're about to see is evidence that Mr. Jung has been systematically looting Caribbean artifacts and selling them on the black market for years. He used an innocent Jamaican woman, Miss Tia Robinson, to gain access to our shipping networks. When she discovered the truth, he kidnapped her fiancé and threatened to kill him unless she remained silent. That's not true, Tia whispered. It doesn't matter, Wu Jin said grimly. Truth is irrelevant. Only narrative matters. Calix continued. I tried to stop him. Tonight, he attempted to murder me in a warehouse on the Kingston docks. He failed. Now I'm calling on Interpol, up to the Caribbean community, and every law enforcement agency in the world to bring Young Woo Jin to justice. The video ended with one final statement. And Miss Robinson, if you're watching this, if you're being held against your will, know that we're coming for you. You don't have to be his victim anymore. The screen went black. Tia looked at Wu Jin, whose expression had gone completely blank. He's framing you, she said unnecessarily. Brilliantly, Wu Jin admitted. By claiming I kidnapped you, he's made sure every airport, every port, every border crossing will be looking for us. We're not just running from Calix anymore. We're running from the entire world. So what do we do? Wu Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, we disappear. Completely. New identities. New lives. And we become ghosts. For how long? Until we can prove Calix is lying. Or until one of us dies. He looked at her seriously. Tia, you can still turn back. I can have this plane land in Miami. You can claim I coerced you. You can go back to your life. What life? Tia asked. Davis betrayed me. My home city thinks I'm a victim or a criminal. I shot someone on camera. She laughed bitterly. There's no going back. There's only forward. Forward into what? Into whatever comes next. She took his hand. Together. Wu Jin squeezed her fingers. Together, he echoed. The plane flew on into the darkness, and somewhere behind them, Calix Viral smiled. Chapter 9. The apartment in Lisbon overlooked the Tagus River. Small, modest, nothing like Zhonghua Tower or the penthouse in Kingston, but it was theirs. Tia stood on the narrow balcony, she watching ferries cross the water, her hair longer now and dyed dark brown. She wore simple clothes bought from street markets, no jewelry, no makeup, She looked like a completely different person. She felt like one too. Behind her, she heard Woo Jin emerge from the apartment, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He'd changed too. His hair grown out slightly, a beard shadowing his jaw. Reading glasses he claimed he didn't need but wore anyway. He looked almost ordinary. "Any news?" Tia asked as he handed her a cup. "Solmara says Calix is still making the rounds. Television interviews, press conferences. He's positioned himself as the hero who exposed international corruption." Woo Jin's jaw tightened. "Interpol has issued a red notice for both of us. So we're officially international fugitives." "Officially?" Tia sipped her coffee. How long can we keep running?" "As long as we need to," Woo Jin replied. "I have resources, safe houses in 17 countries, money that can't be traced, false identities that'll hold up under scrutiny." "That's not what I'm asking." He was quiet. "I'm asking," Tia continued softly, "how long you're willing to live like this. Hidden, always looking over your shoulder, cut off from everything you built." "For you?" Woo Jin set down his coffee and turned her to face him. "Forever. I'd live like this forever if it meant keeping you safe." "That's not living. That's existing." "Then what do you want?" Tia looked at him for a long moment. "I want to fight back," she said. "I want to stop running and start hunting. I want to prove Calix is lying and destroy him the way he tried to destroy us." Woo Jin smiled, his first real smile in weeks. "There's the woman who shot her fiancé in a warehouse," he said with something like pride. "He wasn't my fiancé by then," Tia corrected. "He was just a stranger wearing a familiar face." Before Woo Jin could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it and his expression shifted. "What?" Tia asked. "Message from Solmara. She found something. A storage unit in Kingston registered to Aquilas Coro. Never searched by police because it was off the books." He looked up. "She thinks there might be evidence inside. The real evidence of Calix's operation." "Can she access it?" "Not safely. She'd need someone Calix's people wouldn't recognize." His eyes met hers. Someone who could pass as a local. Understanding dawned on Tia's face. "You want me to go back to Kingston?" "I want us to go back," Woo Jin corrected. "But yes, it's a risk, a huge one. If Calix finds out we're in Jamaica, he'll kill us," Tia finished. "I know, but we can't hide forever. And if there's proof in that storage unit, we could clear our names, destroy Calix, take back our lives." Tia looked out at the river, thinking. 6 weeks ago, she'd been a woman who believed in love and loyalty and simple truths. Now she knew better. She knew that monsters wore human faces, that love could be a weapon, that sometimes the only way to survive was to become someone new entirely. "When do we leave?" she asked. Woo Jin's smile was sharp. "Tonight." They flew into Kingston on forged passports, traveling separately to avoid suspicion. Tia entered as Maria Alvarez, a Portuguese tourist. Woo Jin entered as James Park, a Korean-American businessman. And they met at a predetermined location, a small guest house in Liguania that catered to backpackers and asked no questions. "Solmara's already in position," Woo Jin said, spreading a map across the bed. "The storage unit is here, West Kingston, near the old sugar factory. Minimal security. She's arranged a distraction for midnight, a small fire in a nearby warehouse that'll draw any of Calix's patrols away. And if the distraction doesn't work, then we improvise." Tia traced the route on the map. "It's close to Waterhouse. Too close." "I know, but it's also our best chance." She nodded, pushing down the complicated feelings that came with being this close to home. At 11:45 p.m., they drove a rented Honda toward West Kingston. The streets were different than Tia remembered. Darker, more tense, like the entire city was holding its breath. Is Calix's influence, she realized. His story about stopping Korean criminals had made everyone suspicious of outsiders. They parked 3 blocks from the storage facility. Solmara met them in the shadows, dressed all in black. "Status?" Woo Jin asked. "Fire starts in 7 minutes," Solmara replied. You'll have maybe 15 minutes inside before patrols return. The unit number is 247. Here's the key." She handed it to Tia. "Whatever's in there, it better be worth it." "It will be," Tia said with more confidence than she felt. At exactly midnight, flames erupted from a warehouse 2 blocks away. Sirens wailed, people shouted, and Tia, Woo-jin, and Solmara moved like shadows toward the storage facility. Unit 247 was at the back of the facility, tucked between 2 larger units. Tia's hands shook slightly as she fitted the key into the lock. It turned with a soft click. The door rolled up. Inside was a space about the size of a small bedroom, packed with boxes and filing cabinets. 15 minutes, Woo-jin reminded them. They worked fast, Solmara on the filing cabinets, Woo-jin on the boxes, Tia searching methodically through anything that looked recent. 5 minutes in, Solmara found the first piece of gold. "Shipping manifests," she said, dated going back 20 years, all signed by Calix Viral. "Scan everything," Woo-jin ordered. 7 minutes in, Woo-jin found financial records showing payments from Calix to Jamaican government officials. "Bribery. Corruption. This is enough to—" "Wait," Tia interrupted. She was holding a photograph. A recent one, based on the quality. It showed Calix Viral shaking hands with someone Tia recognized. Commissioner Davidson Roan, the head of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. The same man who'd been on television calling for Woo-jin's arrest. "He's been paying off the police commissioner," Tia whispered. "Not just him," Solmara said, pulling more photos from a box. "Judges, port officials, customs agents. Calix has half the Jamaican government in his pocket." Tia's mind raced. That's why he wasn't afraid of the press conference. That's why he could spin the narrative so easily. He controls the entire system. "Which means we can't just expose him through traditional channels," Woo-jin said grimly. "He'll bury the evidence before it reaches anyone who matters." "Then what do we do?" Before anyone could answer, Solmara's phone buzzed. Her face went pale. "We have a problem," she said quietly. "The fire?" Woo-jin asked. "No. It's—" She held up her phone. The screen showed a live feed from a security camera, a camera positioned to watch the storage facility entrance. And on that screen, Tia saw something that made her heart stop. Davis Thompson, his arms still in a sling from the gunshot wound, standing at the entrance with 6 armed men, looking directly at the camera, smiling. "He knows we're here," Tia breathed. "Not just knows," Solmara said. "He's been tracking you. Look." She pulled up another window on her phone. It showed GPS data from Tia's old phone, the one she'd thought she'd destroyed in Portugal, except she'd forgotten about the cloud backup. "He's been following your digital footprint," Solmara explained, "waiting for you to make a mistake and coming back to Kingston." "Was the mistake," Tia finished. Woo-jin's expression hardened. How many exits?" "1," Solmara replied. "The one Davis is blocking. Then we go through him." "Sir, he has 6 men. We have 3. "I've fought worse odds." "Not with her life on the line," Solmara said, gesturing to Tia. Woo-jin's jaw tightened because he knew she was right. Tia looked at the security feed again, watching Davis coordinate his men. And suddenly, she knew what she had to do. "I have an idea," she said. Both of them looked at her. "But you're going to hate it." Tia walked out of the storage unit alone. Woo-jin had argued for 10 minutes, but she'd been firm. "He wants me, not you," she'd said. "And I'm the only one who can get in his head." "That's what I'm afraid of," Woo-jin had replied. But in the end, he'd let her go. Because he'd learned that you couldn't cage someone you loved. You could only trust them to survive. Davis straightened when he saw her approach, his hand instinctively moving to his injured shoulder. "Tia," he said, "knew you couldn't stay away." "I'm not here for a reunion, Davis." "No?" He gestured to his men to lower their weapons. "Then why are you here?" "To ask you a question." Tia stopped 10 feet away. "Why? Why betray me? Why work with Calix? You could have just broken up with me. Could have left Kingston. Could have done anything except sell the woman who loved you." Davis was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Because love made you weak, and I needed you weak to be useful. The honesty was somehow worse than any lie. Did you ever love me? Tia asked. Even a little? Davis considered the question. Maybe when we were kids, he admitted, before I understood what the world actually was. It's before Kellen taught me that people are just resources to be managed. He shrugged. But that version of me died a long time ago. Probably around the same time I realized you'd waste your whole life being good while the rest of us got rich being smart. Tia nodded slowly. Thank you, she said. Davis frowned. For what? For making this easier. She pulled out her phone and held it up. You've been recording this whole conversation, Davis realized. Every word, Tia confirmed. Your confession that you worked with Calix, that you betrayed me deliberately, that you've been part of the smuggling operation. She smiled. And I just sent it to every media outlet in Jamaica and beyond. Davis's face went white. You bitch, he breathed. Yeah, Tia agreed. I really am. Behind Davis, one of his men's phone buzzed, then another. Then all of them. They pulled them out and stared at the screens. Tia's recording was already going viral. Grab her! Davis screamed. But Tia was already running, not back toward the storage unit, toward the side of the facility where Woojin and Solmara were waiting with a car. She heard gunshots behind her but didn't stop. The car door flew open. She dove inside. Woojin punched the accelerator. They rocketed away from the storage facility as bullets sparked off the reinforced trunk. Did you get what you needed? Woojin demanded. Every word, Tia replied, breathless. Davis confessed to everything. By morning, he'll be more wanted than we are. And Calix? That's phase 2. 24 hours later, Tia Robinson walked into the studios of TVJ, Jamaica's main television network, unannounced. Security tried to stop her. She told them she had evidence about Calix Varel. They called the police. She told them she'd go public with everything if they didn't let her speak. 10 minutes later, she was sitting across from Andrea Sterling, Jamaica's most famous investigative journalist, with cameras rolling live. Miss Robinson, Andrea began carefully, you're aware there's an international warrant for your arrest? I am, Tia replied calmly. And you came here anyway. I came here because lies have been told about me, about young Woojin, about what really happened in Kingston 6 weeks ago. She looked directly at the camera. And I think the Jamaican people deserve the truth. Andrea leaned forward. Then tell us. For the next 15 minutes, Tia laid it all out. The smuggling operation, Calix's 40-year reign, the forged documents. Oh, the government corruption, Davis's betrayal, and most importantly, she showed the evidence. Shipping manifests with Calix's signature, financial records showing bribes to officials, the photographs of Calix with Commissioner Roan, and the recording of Davis confessing to everything. By the time she finished, the studio was dead silent. Andrea Sterling looked like she'd been hit by a truck. This is... Miss Robinson, if what you're saying is true... It's all true, Tia interrupted. And there's one more thing. She pulled out a flash drive. This contains everything, every document, every photo, every piece of evidence we found in Aquilas Coro's storage unit. I'm giving it to you, Andrea, to Jamaica, to the world. Do with it what you will. She placed the drive on the desk between them. And if Calix Viral is watching this, which I know he is, I have a message for him. Tia looked directly at the camera. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'm done letting you control the narrative. If you want me, I'll be at the place where this all started. The Kingston docks, tomorrow at noon. Come face me yourself instead of sending men to do your dirty work. Andrea Sterling's eyes went wide. Miss Robinson, that's a challenge, Tia finished. That's exactly what it is. The broadcast cut to commercial, but it was too late. Tia's challenge had been issued, and all of Jamaica, all of the Caribbean, all of the world would be watching to see if Calix Viral would accept. The Kingston docks at noon were swarming with people, news crews, police, curiosity seekers, port workers. Oh, everyone wanted to see if Tia Robinson was brave or insane. She stood at the edge of Pier 7, wearing the same yellow sundress she'd worn the day Woo Jin arrived in Kingston. Behind her, the Caribbean Sea stretched endless and blue. Beside her stood young Woo Jin, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be anyone but himself. "You know this is crazy," he said quietly. "I learned from the best," Tia replied. "If Calix brings an army—" "He won't." Tia shook her head. "He's too arrogant. He thinks I'm just a girl from Waterhouse. He'll want to prove he can break me himself." "And if you're wrong? Then we fight our way out." She smiled at him. "Together." Woo Jin took her hand. "Together," he agreed. At exactly noon, a black Mercedes pulled up. Calix Viral stepped out alone. No guards, no weapons visible. Just a man in an expensive suit walking toward them like he owned the world, which, in many ways, he did. He stopped 10 feet away. "Miss Robinson," he said pleasantly. "What a dramatic gesture, broadcasting your location to the world, challenging me publicly. Very brave, very stupid." "Maybe," Tia replied. "Or maybe I'm just tired of people like you thinking women like me can be used and discarded." "I never intended to discard you," Calix said. "You were far too valuable. Davis understood that. Even Kellen understood that. You were meant to be the face of our operation, the innocent woman who exposed corruption, the hero." He smiled. "But then you had to go and fall in love with the wrong man." "There's no wrong man when you're choosing for yourself." Calix's smile faded. "You've caused me significant problems, Miss Robinson. The evidence you released has forced me to reorganize. Several of my political connections have been severed. Commissioner Rohn is under investigation. Davis and Kellen are in custody." His eyes went cold. "All because you couldn't accept your role." "My role?" Tia laughed. "You mean my place? The place you decided I should occupy?" "Everyone has a place," Calix said. "Those who accept it thrive. Those who fight it." He trailed off meaningfully. "Die?" Tia finished. "Is that your threat? Because I've been threatened by better men than you." She felt Woo Jin tense beside her, but she kept her focus on Calix. "Here's what's going to happen," Tia said. "You're going to turn yourself in. You're going to confess to 40 years of smuggling, bribery, and corruption, and you're going to do it publicly, right now, so in front of all these cameras." Calix stared at her for a moment. Then he threw his head back and laughed. "And why?" he said when he finally controlled himself. "Would I do that?" Tia pulled out her phone. "Because if you don't, I release the video." "What video?" "The one showing you murdering Aquilas Coro." The color drained from Calix's face. "That's not possible," he said quietly. "There were no cameras. I made sure—" "Aquilas wore a body camera," Tia interrupted. "Hidden, recording everything. We found it in his storage unit along with the other evidence, and it shows you very clearly putting a bullet in his head." She held up her phone. "One button press and this goes to every law enforcement agency in the world." For the first time since Tia had met him, Calix Varel looked genuinely rattled. "You're bluffing," he said. "Am I?" She pressed play. The video was shaky, filmed from chest height, but the audio was crystal clear. Calix's voice. "You've become a liability, old friend." Aquilas's voice. "Please, Calix, we can work this out." A gunshot. The video went black. Tia stopped playback and looked at Calix. "That's murder," she said simply. "First degree. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Or—" She let the word hang. "Or what?" "Or you confess to everything else. Take responsibility for the smuggling operation. Clear young Woo Jin's name. Clear mine. And I keep this video private." "You'd let me get away with murder?" "No," Tia said. "I'd let you get away with one murder in exchange for confessing to 40 years of other crimes. It's a better deal than you deserve, but it's the only one you're getting." Calix's eyes narrowed. "And what guarantee do I have that you won't release the video anyway?" "You don't," Tia admitted. "You just have to trust me. Trust? Calix laughed bitterly. You expect me to trust the woman who shot her own fiancé? Ex-fiancé, Tia corrected. And yes, because unlike you, I keep my word. For a long moment, Calix said nothing. The crowd around them was dead silent, everyone straining to hear. Then slowly, Calix pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. This is Calix Virel, he said. I'm calling to turn myself in. The apartment in Seoul had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, not as high as Jonghwa Tower, not as imposing, but perfect. Tia stood at those windows, watching the sun set over the Han River, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Behind her, Woo Jin emerged from the bedroom, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt, something she still wasn't entirely used to seeing. Coffee? He offered. Please. He handed her a cup and stood beside her, both of them watching the city glow. Solmara called, Woo Jin said. Calix's trial starts next month. With his confession and all the evidence, his lawyers are trying to negotiate a plea deal. Will they get it? Probably, but he'll still spend the rest of his life in prison. Woo Jin paused. Davis and Kellon, too. They're cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for reduced sentences. Tia nodded, feeling nothing about Davis except distant pity. And us? She asked. All charges dropped. Interpol removed our red notices. We're free to travel anywhere. He smiled. We're officially boring, law-abiding citizens. Boring, Tia repeated. That's new. Temporary. Probably. She laughed. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Tia said, I've been thinking about starting something. Maybe a non-profit. Helping people trapped in situations like mine. People being used by criminal operations. Giving them resources to escape. That's a good idea, Woo Jin said. You'd be good at it. Would you help? Always. Tia turned to look at him. And us? What are we? Really? It was a question she'd been avoiding for months. Woo Jin set down his coffee and took both her hands. We're whatever you want us to be, he said. I'm not going to put a label on it or try to define it, but I will tell you this. I wake up every morning grateful you're still here. I go to sleep every night hoping you'll still be here tomorrow, and everything in between is just details. Tia felt tears prick her eyes. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation. She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Woo Jin said, Oh, I almost forgot. This came for you today. He handed her an envelope. No return address, just her name written in elegant script. Tia opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with one line. One night made me yours, but every day forward is mine. Thank you for choosing yourself. Someone who understands. There was no signature, but Tia knew who it was from. Somewhere in the world, there was another woman who'd made the same impossible choice she had, who'd chosen herself over safety, who'd walked away from everything she knew, who'd survived. Tia folded the letter carefully and placed it on the windowsill. Then she turned back to Woo Jin and the life they were building. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one sunrise after another. Late that night, Tia woke to the sound of rain. She lay in bed listening to it hammer against the windows, and for a moment she was transported back to that night in Kingston. The night everything changed. The night she stepped into a car and flew across the ocean. The night she became someone new. She felt Woo Jin stir beside her. Can't sleep, he murmured. Just thinking. About what? About how one choice can change everything. He pulled her closer. Regrets? None. They lay like that for a while, listening to the rain. And then, a soft knock at the door. Both of them went still. Are you expecting anyone? Tia whispered. Yeah, no. Woo Jin slipped out of bed and moved toward the door with the kind of caution that came from years of surviving impossible situations.
He checked the peephole, then went completely still. "Who is it?" Tia asked, getting up. Woojin didn't answer. He just opened the door. Standing in the hallway, soaking wet from the rain, was a woman Tia had never seen before. Young, beautiful, terrified. "Mr. Jung," the woman said in heavily accented English. "My name is Amara Ife. I'm from Lagos. Someone gave me your address and said you help people like me. People who've been—" Her voice broke. "People who've been used by men like Calix Virel." She held up a photograph. It showed a man Tia didn't recognize, but the expression on his face was familiar, cold, calculating, predatory. "His name is Obsidian Thorn," Amara continued. "And he's doing in West Africa what Calix did in the Caribbean. I have evidence, I have names, but I need help." She looked between Woojin and Tia desperately. "Please, you're the only ones who've ever beaten someone like him. You're my only hope." Tia looked at Woojin. Woojin looked at Tia, and slowly, together, they smiled. "Come inside," Tia said, stepping forward. "We need to talk." Because they'd learned something important over the past 6 months. Monsters didn't die when you defeated them. They just wore new faces and moved to new places. But neither did heroes. And Tia Robinson, the girl from Waterhouse who'd crossed an ocean for love and found herself instead, was just getting started. Y'all, this story, this journey, I'm literally crying right now. Tia went from victim to warrior, and I am so proud of her. A comment, Queen Tia, if you loved this story. And if you want to see more stories like this, strong women, complex relationships, and endings that actually matter, hit that subscribe button hard. I've got so many more stories coming your way. Click the video on your screen to watch the next one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this channel. And remember, always choose yourself first. See you in the next story, friends.